Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Friend Code. I'm your host, Michael Damiani. This time, I'm joined by Matthew Simmons of YoVideoGames. How's it going, dude?
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
It's going well, and it is September, and as a lot of people speculated and guessed, there was probably going to be a Nintendo Direct, and we finally got one. Wasn't on a Wednesday, was on a Thursday. Wasn't the 2 weeks earlier that people had speculated, but.
You know, I had a going theory about that, and I'm not saying what I'm going to say is the honest truth, but I noticed TGS was really late this year, and
actually, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so TGS really late. It's very end of the month, like first day of October, and Nintendo usually puts their September stuff right about a week ahead of TGS or so, like a week or so ahead of it.
Okay.
And then when it was kind of like when the days were rolling into September and nothing was being announced, I was kind of sitting there thinking, I wonder, maybe it's just because TGS is late and they want to like push it to that. And I wonder if maybe too that has now the only thing I have to go off of that really is just sort of the timing and the fact that the Japanese directs, they often have titles that are exclusive to those Japanese directs. But yeah. Maybe those companies probably talk to Nintendo a bit and be like, okay, hey, TGS is really late this year. We don't really want to announce a game and then have to wait a month before we can like do our proper showing. So I think for a lot of third-party Japanese companies, maybe smaller publishers, it's like they like to use the direct as a springboard of like, here's the announcement trailer, and then we'll have a gameplay demonstration and like a week later at TGS. So I kind of wonder if maybe that's what it was all about.
Could have been, yeah. I mean, that could have been it. We also talked. I mean, I think a lot of people thought maybe the Sony doing its big PlayStation showcase when they announced it, Nintendo may have planned to go earlier, but they wanted to be kind of, a little bit of a buffer between that and when their direct is. And honestly, neither of these might have mattered. Nintendo might have just been like, this is when we're doing it because we're Nintendo. This is the things we never really find out about it. But Nintendo did give us a direct 40 minutes, quite a bit of stuff in here. And we can go in order of the direct, or if there's something you want to specifically want to start with, we can go in that direction because there's a lot in here. And
well, they started with what is a big title, but kind of like what not a lot of people think about. I don't have to touch on a lot because it was very much a teaser. But again, I kind of want this is a good springboard to sort of transition to what I just said, where they started with Sunbreak for Monster Hunter Rise,
new expansion coming next summer,
right? And someone pointed out that Capcom changed their TGS description. It literally doesn't say Capcom Showcase now; it says Capcom Showcase Monster Hunter updates. And then there's a description. So they're like, learn all the latest info on Sunbreak and Monster Hunter Stories 2. So, and it was a tiny little quick teaser. And then after that, Capcom's updated its TGS page to basically just saying to everyone, like, we don't have anything else we're going to talk about at TGS but Sunbreak. So, and then that's a big deal because it's like the G rank expansion for Monster Hunter Rise. And that's nice. But I mean, if anything, it was just sort of, I guess in a way for me, it's more just sort of confirmation on my theory that companies like to use a big September Direct as a springboard to TGS.
Now,
because Nintendo doesn't go to TGS, and they never have. But
that is very true. Not just for TGS. I think we just get these two out of the way. I mean, there was a teaser for Animal Crossing update, the cafe, the Roost, and Smash Brothers wasn't technically there. They just announced that there will be the final presents on October 5th. So this was kind of a thing to advertise upcoming deep dives into some of these teaser announcements.
Some people point that I actually don't mind that too much. I actually kind of like it because there's actually three things, if you really think about it, where they're like, here's announcements of announcements. We're going to announce the last Smash character in October. And then we're going to announce that we're going to announce announcements at an Animal Crossing Direct in October. And then we're going to announce that there will be more like an upgrade plan for the Switch Online in October, like all kind of like within the next month. But is it interesting that they're like, here's announcements of announcements? I know some people kind of hate that. I don't mind it too much because at least, it gives you a good roadmap of where they're going this fall. Like you got info and then you got basically a heads up, like when more info, because I personally really hate Nintendo's, we'll just randomly dump something on Twitter at 6 a.m. updates, or like they just kind of like
Yeah.
randomly update like their YouTube channel with like a launch trailer for a game. I'm not a fan of the just sort of like you have no idea what's coming or when, just keep an eye on their Twitter now. Like I like having a bit of a roadmap or a heads up on stuff personally. So
before we get too much into any more specifics, because I know we want to talk maybe a little bit about Smash, back to Sunbreak really quick. As I said, coming out summer 2022. The other thing that was not in the direct, but like people found out, is that Sunbreak is going to be day and date on Switch and PC, marking the first time in a while, at least since they've done like with Rise, especially with World, the content's going to be synced between the platforms despite the staggered release. We still don't have a date for the PC version. I'm assuming that's coming in the TGS presentation.
Yeah, well, I think they pretty much, because like they always stated Rise was going to be on PC, but they said it was going to come on PC like next year. And I think Capcom probably just looked at it and said, "There's no point in releasing like Rise OG vanilla, like it's some early 22, and then like immediately there's going to be this big old update, or the massive expansion as they call it." So I think Capcom is kind of just making the right decision here and just being like, just hold the PC version back until Sunbreak comes out, and then they can kind of like hit the ground running with it. So I think it's just a smart decision on Capcom's part, with the timing of the PC release. So
do you think they might? Do you think there'll be any chance they'd let like cross play, cross save, or anything like that with Sync? Or do you think it'd keep them isolated?
I wish it's gonna be. I don't think World ever had cross saves. I don't think it ever did.
They never synced. They never synced up. Yeah.
Iceborne or anything. No. So no. I just think not. Just because like that's probably too weird or foreign of a concept for them.
Do you think it holds it back at all by not doing that? Because if you could unify, like you'd have a bigger unified community if everyone's on the same content update and able to play with each other. Like I know Monster Hunter World is huge and Rise is really big, but they could probably be even bigger if they like would unify the community like that.
They could, but it's just kind of one of those frustrating things I feel where you have like a much older developer or really more of a much older publisher who's kind of like dragged their feet on PC gaming, as a whole, and then they, once they started to see that initial success, they started to like pick up the pace a little bit, but it's just one of those weird things where it's like, it's really, I mean, I don't make these games, so I don't know how hard cross saving would be, but like, it doesn't seem like it would be intensely hard to do. Like Hades had it. I mean it was post launch deal like patch, but it just doesn't seem like it was to be something that's that hard to do. But it is just one of those weird things where it's like they just don't think about it, or they assume. And this comes from a little bit of experience of talking with people. Like sometimes it's just they assume there's going to be some issue or like something nefarious could be done with it, so like they avoid it at all costs. And it's like no, it's kind of like just being a little gun shy about embracing PC technology. Not really related to Monster Hunter, but like it kind of it's just something you kind of hear brought up a lot. Like I don't know if you're familiar with the situation with the Judgment series from Sega.
Oh, are you talking about like the actor and the not wanting it to be on PC? Yeah.
Like they don't want it on PC. Why? Because someone could mod it, and it's like,
yeah. That's
we're gonna hold the whole game back from a huge PC audience because he's afraid someone could mod his face on a PC version.
It's just so interesting because on the flip side, someone you thought would be right up there with these types of policies would be Atlas, but yet they're embracing kind of like the PC with the Persona, putting out some of the older games out there, and like and I mean, and it's weird because Sega, you have examples of this where Sega wants to be on PC, but they're getting pushback. And then maybe, Capcom, which has never been shy about putting stuff on PC, this current generation. But when it comes to like cross play, like I have to imagine maybe it's not that type of, I mean, maybe Simmons, you're right, but also like server stuff, like server infrastructure, the cost of maintaining servers maybe going up because larger population. Now they have to like do more with that, I assume, because I'm thinking of like MMOs and stuff. It gets a little bit more involved.
Cross play is a different thing from cross save. I want to specify that.
Okay.
Like when I'm talking about, like when I say it shouldn't be that hard, I'm talking about cross saves. I'm not talking about cross play. Cross play is kind of a different. Yeah, that can get a little bit more hectic, and I can understand where that becomes okay. That's going to be difficult, or that might be some more actual like R&D and stuff like that. So I understand a little bit more hesitancy towards cross play, even though it would really benefit them. Like it would benefit the hell out of Rise if it had cross play.
I agree.
Cross save would benefit the hell out of it. So for me, cross saving is like, I don't know why they don't do cross save is more confusing than cross playing to me.
It's just weird because you just you just have server side stuff, maybe like your cloud save, like you upload it to Capcom server, they just verify like, oh yeah, here's your account progress is here on the server, and that way when you go between the versions, like it just syncs up, like you could just work with that, or they can even make it a little bit more simplified. And it's just strange they won't even go that far. Like as you're saying, like cross save seems like an easier ask in delivery, and they won't even offer that much, which is a little disappointing.
Yeah, and we've seen from there are other games, like fighting games, like smaller ones and stuff. You can actually do cross play. Switch can cross play with other consoles and PCs. So it's not like a hardware, like some people. This will get brought up a lot, I think, but like a lot of people might assume like, oh, the Switch is a really old, weak hardware, maybe it can't do crossplay. Like, no, it can do crossplay. But like I can understand that there's maybe more hesitancy towards making that stuff work. But yeah, it won't have crossplay. Definitely, it won't have cross save, and that kind of sucks. Because if you do want to jump in on PC, if you own Monster Hunter Rise on the Switch, you're gonna have to start from scratch with that PC version. So
yeah, that's always that was the thing. Like that's like with World. I mean, I waited for the PC version of World, but I didn't dive in to any of the other version because I don't have to start all over again. I was like, I'm only starting this once. I don't want to do this twice.
Yeah,
it's just that. It's like you I think you'd find more people would be likely to buy both versions if they can have them. Like it seems like even a better business decision for them just to allow cross save.
Yeah, it seems like it would be an enticing proposition. Like that's going to entice people to buy two versions. Like there's no enticement to buy both versions. Just be like, well, you could play it all over again from the beginning with the power of a PC on your side. That's like your only sell to someone who has it already on Switch. So I think it's weird that they wouldn't want to be like, well, we're going to have these cross saves or even better cross play. And then you really get a lot of it because there's like 6 to 8 million people who have it on the Switch. That's a huge player base. It would be such a great marketing tool to just be like, hey, we're giving you a reason to buy a second copy of the game. So to me, it's like, why don't you take that? But whatever. That's just kind of one of those great mysteries where like people still kind of like live in this sort of like world where it's like, this is the Super NES version of the game, and this is the Genesis version of the game, and this is the Sega CD version of the game, and this is the Game Gear version of the game, and this is the 32X version of the game, and welcome back to the era of Primal Rage. That might be like way too far back for some people. I apologize to your younger listeners.
Yeah. We had, besides obviously they opened with Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and then they got into a few updates and smaller announcements. We had an update on Mario Party Superstars, which just looks like it's Super Mario Party's like presentation just applied to
the only thing I'll say about Mario Party Superstars is the reason you're not seeing any Mario Party in that N64 on Switch Online is because of this game.
Well, it was in the montage, I thought, for upcoming games.
No Mario parties.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay. So, I was going to double check that, but if you remember, then
go ahead and double check it. I'm senile, but I'm pretty sure that there was no Mario Party games announced in the N64 thing. And I'm like, because they're trying to sell it.
So yeah, because I mean, I saw some people assume like Mario wouldn't be. Here you go. So Mario Golf, Pokemon Snap, Majora's Mask, F-Zero X, Kirby the Crystal Shard. We'll get to this later. I'm just going through it to verify. Yeah, it was not in the montage. So you're right, but I mean, could potentially come at some point, Simmons, but I think they might hold off on it to give a good window to Mario Party Superstars. But Nintendo sees the value in both because they want to maximize the sales for Mario Party Superstars when it's new, and then they're going to be people want nostalgia. Oh, I would like to play the original one. Like there's something about it, and then like, oh, well, here's the original one. They'll hit you up with that later and double dip.
Here's the weird thing for me about Mario Party Superstars is that there's 5 boards split across the first 3 games. And I'm just kind of like, why aren't you just putting all the boards in there from all 3 games?
I mean, we would hope they would,
or at least like a chunk of it. But like, and you would say, well, that's DLC. I'm like, do you remember how the DLC went for Super Mario Party?
Literally was about to say Super Mario Party was like one of the best-selling games on Switch, and it took 2 years to get a update, and it was most likely because they're developing this and they made the functionality for this, and they just like gave it like to that. However,
they still didn't add any boards. Like,
they didn't add any boards or content, which is the biggest thing. 2, even if it's free updates for this game, it'll bring up the question that's been brought up so many times now, or the issue's been brought up so many times now about Nintendo releasing content incomplete releases. And the games that like Mario Golf, like we saw the update for Mario Golf, and it's like free updates, but it's like, man, that stuff wasn't in the main game. And do people really want to have to wait months and months after to get stuff they felt was going to be in the game? People like to play a game and move on sometimes. Nintendo is almost treating these like a service type thing or short-term service games where they want you to stay invested. But it's also weird because there's no like paid DLC angle as far as we know for some of these. So it's like, but again, it goes back to people would just like to see that stuff there, and there have been calls from like the people trying to call it Nintendo saying, yo, you're releasing incomplete games, like stop doing this.
They are. I think this might be a case where possibly you could argue COVID does have a real effect on something like Mario Golf in particular, which came out and it's like, wow, this seems to have come out really like hot, like kind of weak in the content department. And then like there's been one free update already with New Donk City, and I think there was a new character. I don't remember who. I don't care.
Koopa Troop is the one they announced in this.
Sorry. No, I mean for the first update.
I forgot.
With New Donk City, I can't remember if they added a character or not. Whatever. And this one, it has Koopa and Ninja and 2 new courses, like a
Ninja,
like a new desert and a new snowy course. So I don't remember when that comes out, like October, I think, or something, or maybe no, it came out the day it was shadow dropped, right? Yeah. I think it came out yesterday. But anyways, point is it does kind of feel like
Toadette was the new character. Sorry,
Toadette. Toadette
was a new character.
It kind of feels like maybe the game should have come out in September, but I think Nintendo wanted that June release because that kind of like mimic Mario Tennis Aces, which you could also argue, which would be a counter argument to the COVID thing, but you could argue Mario Tennis Aces felt a little small at launch, and then they added like for a whole year, it was like DLC for a year into Mario Tennis Aces. So but yeah, maybe this is somewhat of a case, but again, I kind of go back and argue with in my own head about it. I'm like, yeah, but Super Mario Party came out way before the pandemic, and that was really anemic with content, and Mario Tennis Aces is the same deal. So it's like those games didn't have a lot of content in them, and yeah, you can make that argument now. Now you can maybe argue, well, they're stretched thin, or they're having to move to work from home, blah blah blah. I don't know. Like, I have a lot of thoughts, I guess, on sort of the rollout of some of these games and whether or not is Nintendo releasing them unfinished. Here's what I'll say. I think Nintendo. This is gonna be a little controversial. I'm just gonna warn you, like, controversy warning right now. I think Nintendo's really starting to come into an era where there is a distinct lack or just showing between developer talent. Like there's like basically what I'm saying is like some developers that are either first party or sort of work exclusively with Nintendo, some of them are just better than others. Like that, like way better than others. And to make a really kind of nasty, well, not nasty, but just sort of like drive the point home, you could look at a game like Skyward Sword HD, which we know is done by Tantalus, which I don't know why Nintendo hid that for so long. Seems like an odd thing. And Skyward Sword HD came out. It's a Wii game, a late era Wii game, right? It had a better frame rate, and it had a couple things that were kind of changed or added to it, right? They had to sort of like redo the control scheme a bit for Switch Lite, but like it was kind of just that game, right? But then you look at something else that came out, before Skyward Sword, like a year before Skyward Sword, and you look at what happened with Xenoblade Definitive, and that was a late era Wii game, and they added like 15 hours of content in an epilogue, and they went back and redid all the head models and all the hand models for every character in the game, and some textures were completely 100% redone, some were just upscaled. So they both came out at the same price in the same sort of deal, and I'm just kind of sitting here looking at this, and I'm starting to think, I think some developers within Nintendo are just better at this than others. Like it's not as much like where on N64 you looked at a game like Mario Golf and Mario Tennis by Camelot, and it didn't really look any better or worse than anything else on the N64. Like, because you just didn't need as much manpower and you didn't need as much time to make a game on the N64 as you do on the Switch. But as time has marched on and technology has improved, some developers, even within Nintendo, have adapted much better at kind of like coming into this era of gaming. And I think it's starting to really show in the content of their games, because like, to be quite frank, like Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Tennis or Mario Golf Super Rush, they're fun games. I own Mario. I own them. Like they are a good time with friends. But I'd be lying if I said they were as content rich as, say, the GameCube versions. So,
yeah, I think there's sort of two things there. One, the issue of developers who put enough content into their game and what they're actually like trying to do with their games, which I think is a multifaceted issue. Budget obviously comes in there. Like you made an example about like the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition versus Skyward Sword HD, and it's like one clearly had more budget. And I'm not also denying that Monolith Soft's probably very, very, very talented. That's another part of it. But like there's other factors to consider, I feel like, in terms of like what can be in there. And it can just be as simple as some of these games like Nintendo says, like, you only got this much budget and then you only have this much time to work on these. And on the flip side, you're absolutely right about certain developers and studios becoming more attuned with the hardware faster. We've seen that forever. For N64, it was Rare. Rare was like beating even Nintendo first party at their own game. Then we had Retro in the GameCube era and Factor 5 in the GameCube era, just like blowing away. Like, look at what we can do with this system. That's kind of always been like a thing. And then, like, it's clear that like companies like studios like Monolith Soft clearly know how to do a lot with that Switch hardware versus some of the other things. So like, I don't think that seems like an easy thing to argue. But for the other part with content, it's just, I wish we got more got to peek behind the curtains more. We see this with other like especially Western developers. We get a little bit more insight into what's going on there, or we get more reports. Even though like with Sony, I feel like we get more reports about what's going on with stuff. But with Nintendo, it's so secretive that we don't always have the best picture about what's going on internally with like budgets and team sizes, and we're like, it's just hard to guess. But it is very clear that like Monolith Soft is a big studio. They're very talented, and they usually get the bigger budgets. Although they've even said sometimes they've actually been some of the more outspoken. You've brought it up several times before about like why wasn't Future Perfect or Future Connect more like robust? And they're like, well, you had the option to either make it what it was, and we had other stuff we were working on, or we'd have to take people off that to work on this. And like, we've made that call. So like, even they're not immune to like being like taxing out, max capacity their resources.
And we don't really know, but from the buyer standpoint, from the consumer standpoint, you got to look at it this way too. Like, these are both $60 re-releases of these Wii games. So and frankly, if any game series can afford to have a little bit more time and polish and whatever put into it.
Exactly.
You would think something like the Zelda franchise,
It's
like
yeah.
would be okay. Are we going to add a 10-hour expansion to this big 3D Zelda game? Like, we don't want, like, hey, let's spend the money on this game that like maybe cracked 1 million, or Skyward Sword, which, you know, obviously cracked like 3 to 4 million on the Wii. But no, it was kind of like, and it's not disrespect to Tantalus, because
Yeah.
I don't.
They
I'm
were
not
hired to do a specific job, and they did what they were paid to do and did a good job at that. They weren't asked to add content.
Exactly.
You know, they can't go beyond their mandate and their orders from Nintendo.
I mean, they probably wouldn't mind either if they said like, "Hey, can you add a new land?" Or
sure, they'd be thrilled.
A couple new dungeons. They'd probably be like, "Yeah, sure, we'll take a crack at it." I don't think they'd deny it, but yeah, I'm sure like the job they were hired for was like, get this running on Switch, get it running at 60 frames if you can, and then figure out the control scheme. You know, and that was probably it for the most part.
And it's probably, again, I think very likely is a budget thing Nintendo allocated, but it's again a good point, because it's like Zelda is such a big series for them. They started with the Wind Waker by going a little bit more exuberant with that one, with Aonuma's presentation saying like, hey, it's going to take a little while because we're redoing the visuals, we're tweaking some stuff. And then you go from that to Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword HD. And it's like, wait, what? Why'd you stop? Like, why didn't you go a little higher effort on both of these, Nintendo? And it's a little weird, and it makes me kind of hesitant about, you know, if that's all they're going to do. I mean, it's nice to get those updates and make them playable and easy to access again, but it kind of loses some of the like the oomph, the specialness about these announcements. When, I mean, this is the same thing that I think Sony gets called out as well about, versus like, will they do a remaster set? Will they do a remake? You know, and like in game preservation, like I think Nintendo and Sony get like under the crosshairs a little bit more, especially Nintendo with their gating now. What they did, like we saw through Super Mario 3D All Stars, but now with as we get to in a bit, the online service, like Mario 64 is going to be on that service. So it's like we knew that something like that's going to happen. But again, to your point, it's a little surprising that Zelda doesn't get a little bit more, I don't know, pizzazz with its like remasters, like going a little bit the extra mile,
you know, or something. It's just, I just honestly think, and someone pointed out, I read this, and I can't say if it's true or not, but it sounds true. But someone pointed out that like Camelot Software Planning has about 45 people on staff. I think there's probably some way you could probably look that up. Now, let's assume that's true. Let's just go off of that, which sounds about right. That kind of makes sense for why their games are kind of like have less and less content, because, you know, 45 person staff, that you could make a pretty content feature rich Mario Golf on the N64 with 45 people, you know, or you could even split that and have a content feature rich Game Boy Color version of Mario Golf. When you have 45 people who have to make, you know, a Switch era HD Mario Golf, that suddenly becomes a problem. So that, to me, that kind of like, it says, you know, also that like these people maybe just don't have the staff, you know, and the budget to really
exactly
going to like live up to like what the, you know, what they had content feature wise on GameCube, because now we're in the HD era, and it's like it's well into the past the HD era, if you will. So
yeah, some of these studios I feel also like they're just like adjusting to HD because they were so late to it as well. But I mean, there's also calls that like maybe Camelot, like people have lost a little bit of faith in Camelot. Like the whole thing about like people wanting like, oh, we want Rare to go make a new Banjo-Kazooie. It's like, well, it's not even the same Rare anymore. It's like same thing with like Camelot. These studios, it's been so long since these revered entries that people like. It's like people move on. People don't stay at a company usually for 20 years. I mean, some do, but like that's not always the case. And
it's also like it's also kind of like, because everyone's like, when are we getting a new Golden Sun? When are we getting a new Golden? I'm like, guys, if Camelot's really only 45 people strong, we're not getting it. We're not getting a new Golden Sun, because like I think in everyone's mind they want a Golden Sun that'll compete with like Final Fantasy or like even Monolith Soft. I'm like, Monolith Soft has like 250 some people.
Like that's like a pipe dream. Maybe some people that I think just want another good entry, not necessarily competing, but like
who does it? But like,
but it's like, do you think Camelot could actually do that right now? And it's like, it takes a lot to do that. I mean, and pedigree isn't always, you know, sometimes people put too much blind faith in a pedigree without fully understanding the circumstances. Again, we don't always get a lot of behind the scenes thing, and that's kind of true about like this next game. I mean, I think pedigree might get people interested in this. The next game they talked about was Voice of Cards, the Isle Dragon Roars. This new card game from Square Enix, and everyone's like, oh, kind of cool. And then you see the near team like Yoko Taro and Okabe. It's like, wait, what? They're working on a card game.
Well, I think this was teased at the beginning of the month without really any media. But like Taro had said, I think during a press junket for Nier Replicant, he's like, the next project he does, he wants it to be like a really small scale game. He wanted to do a little small.
That's true.
So here we are, a little small scale side project. That's fine. Yeah, I'm cool with that. So it's definitely not the game that like that makes me jump up and down with excitement or anything. I'm not. It reminds me so much. I think it was called the Crimson Dragon or Crimson Knight or something. There was some 3DS game done by Matsuno of the Evilus and Pharmacy Tactics and Ogre Battle fame, where he did a game.
Shroud?
Yeah, it was in conjunction with Level 5, and it was like
Crimson Shroud.
Yeah, something. And it was Crimson something. Anyways, yeah, it was like this simulates a tabletop role-playing experience. And then this gimmick is cards. Everything's done with cards, but it's like the same idea, where it's a very small scale, concept, but it's just simulating tabletop RPGs, like right down to here's a table and here's a dice that we roll kind of thing, and here's a little chess pawn that we move across.
Yeah, it was cool. The cards made up the map and stuff, and even whatever your thoughts on it, they shadow dropped the demo. Like you can go pick up a demo where it was available same day. Yes, direct was yesterday. We're recording today. And you just try it out. So it's that's a thing I kind of like about Square Enix with their smaller projects, as we'll get to another project in a little bit that was talked about, but they do allow these demos, and I'm sure they'll collect feedback. I will say the artwork on the cards looked really good, and the music, the song they were playing, I was like, well, of course, who's making this music. Man, I'm like,
this sounds so much like an Okabe piece, which is good. That's not a bad thing at all. But it's neat. But maybe we'll save it for later for more Square talk. But I have some thoughts on Square Enix as a whole with Switch in particular.
Yeah, they announced the Disco Elysium is coming to Switch as well. Which actually kind of surprised me, because I was like, the final cut. Yeah. It just seems
like it's not on Switch. I'm like, it just was like, wait a minute, isn't this? And people are like, no, it wasn't. I'm like, wow, this just seems like a game that would have come out on Switch as well.
It seems like the worst way. I mean, it's set up a lot of these ports, but that game is a point and click. And I mean, I know you got the touchscreen, but also I know here Isla loves that game and was already noticing it was the visuals a little bit more simplified, it was losing some of the effects. But I mean, it is a game. I think the more the merrier on Switch. So I have no issue with it coming out. And if that's what it takes to get some people to play it, I tried playing it. It's just not my style of game. But everyone who's actually played through it loves that narrative. They love that game. So
yeah,
Nintendo likes going after those critical darlings, especially the smaller indie looking games as well.
Yeah, I was just kind of surprised. I'm like, oh, I'm just surprised it's not on Switch.
Yeah, I thought it was on there maybe too. And then I was like, oh, and maybe it's just the final cut version they're getting. It's no, it's just coming. And it's all right. And it's weird because the digital will be available or on the release date. I think it's October 29th. October 12th, sorry. But the physical version's not coming out till next year. So that was a little interesting that you have to wait several months for the physical version. Just a little weird thing about that. I mean,
this is just the ongoing saga of the Punish collector.
Yeah, unless maybe they have I don't know if it's being a special deal with maybe I am 8-bit or something. I'm not. I could probably just look it up, but if it's something special they're doing arranging the packaging, then maybe it just needs more time. But
yeah, well, didn't Hades get a physical release?
It could be something like that for sure. So I mean, maybe that's the reason. But if it's just a standard thing, who knows? Maybe COVID was causing some delays in the production stuff, like everything else. But the next thing they did, Hyrule Warriors expansion pass update. This is the story DLC. I don't like every time I see this game, it like I can't help but notice the performance of this game. Like as time goes on, like it just becomes more and more glaring that this game, it's just like the Switch cannot handle running this game. Now, this was more of a story presentation trailer, and they did finally show off Robbie and oh my god, Pura playable in this, and I think that was widely assumed because in game they tag along with you in parts and they have like full move sets. So it's like they wouldn't go to all that work if they weren't going to be playable.
Yeah. I've never understood. Like, for me, I was like, it just seemed like they didn't show much.
That was the thing. Like, unless you've played this game and paid attention, I don't feel like what they showed looked any different than like a normal trailer to the average bystander. That's the thing.
I was very confused by what we were seeing. I was very much like, did they actually show anything in this?
They did. The cutscenes are like they showed new stuff for sure in it. It's just you have to be in the know. Otherwise, I think it was like look the same. I mean, the most exciting part was showing them playable at the end and showing their move sets, which looked kind of cool actually. Using the their technology. It's called Guardian of Remembrance. I was waiting for that title right there. Pure riding around like some orb thing looked pretty cool. Coming October 29th. It's just interesting that this one wasn't the lead because the first DLC was just added like EX plus missions and a new research, like kind of like skill tree thing where if you brought certain materials, you can unlock new abilities and new, like basically new stuff, but it wasn't like story and it wasn't new playable character stuff. So it was like really dry and grindy, unfortunately.
I don't know. To me, I was just looking at the whole thing and just being like, I don't know what's new here. So it just seemed like they didn't show much. Like I was expecting something a little bit more grandiose because to my knowledge, this was like the bigger DLC update. This was like, this was like the big, thing you've been waiting for, big story character, like their Torna, if you will. And yeah, it just seemed like, oh, here's a trailer. There's some things happening and you can play as these two goofballs. The end. I was like, okay, like, I don't know. Wasn't very long. Didn't show very much. Was sort of confused because I was expecting like way more pomp and circumstance behind it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to look up how many things are in the pass, how many waves, because wave 1, Pulse of the Ancients, is the one I talked about. This is Guardians of Remembrance, Guardian of Remembrance. So what is it? Only 2 waves? Because if this is the only, if this is it, then it's like this was $20 basically. I don't know if this was necessarily worth $20. Yeah. DLC includes both wave 1 and 2, and it's $19.99. So yeah, I don't know about this one, honestly. I mean, I need to play wave 2 because it's got new story, battle for Kakariko Village, battle of Gaponga Village, and more. New stages, Coliseum, and more. Newly added playable characters, Pyrrha and Robbie, and one more added actions for existing character. Oh, one more playable character they haven't revealed yet. So there will be a third playable character, and then added moves for each character.
I guess.
Yeah, like both of these combined felt like a $9.99. It felt like a $10, but this is like Nintendo here. Basically, I'm just trying to say I've been I enjoyed Age of Calamity. I actually think it was better than I expected. Obviously held back by performance issues is the number one thing, and the post-game stuff is like just typical grindy Muso stuff. But this DLC thing has not lived up to expectations whatsoever. It seems like a huge missed opportunity.
Well, let me ask you this, because I only played the demo, and then after the demo, I was pretty much like, oh, okay, this runs terribly. I'm not bothering with this. So did it get any better, like
performance wise, or do you mean like?
No, performance wise, yeah, like it was. It was kind of like it was kind of like shockingly rough.
I will say this. It's always there. It is always there. And later levels get really chaotic, so it gets it's there, more prevalent. The thing is, I got used to it. It is not gameplay detrimental. It never caused any issue with me succeeding or failing. I never blamed, oh man, this performance I lost because of that. Like, even with me, when I get like salty like that, never had that happen. And so, yeah, it actually, its core, it's still good. It's still a good Muso game, despite that the performance issues. It's just, it would have really looked like these are really good maps. Like, they do unique kind of like takes on existing areas, and some add new parts of areas we hadn't seen before. And it's like, man, I really want to enjoy these, and I want to look at these and say, wow. But at the same time, the performance issues kind of hold that back. So it is loses some of its luster there, I feel. So yeah, for its core game, I think, to answer your question, yes, it's always there, but it never became a problem in terms of like it affected gameplay. It's definitely a knock against its, its presentation. But but telling you, Simmons, like the DLC plan for it just seems so underwhelming, and like they've treated it kind of like an afterthought every time they, except the original time they presented it, like that graphic, the infographic that was up there for a few seconds. It's like, slow down. Like when you show Smash, you have it up there forever. Why? Like it's like they want to gloss over it. It's the same thing with the Breath of the Wild DLC. It's like, I just don't know.
Honestly, both Zelda games, I mean, Breath of the Wild obviously got way more substantial DLC than
it did. I'll concede that.
But like, it also feels kind of like both games kind of like, well, we did some cool little like tweaking stuff. Like, neither one of them feel like they live up to the scope of the game they're based off of when it comes to the DLC. I mean, I know you haven't played it, but it's just kind of like, when I think of like, when I think of like DLC, I think of like Torna. I'm like, oh, it's a full game. This is a full dang game. And like unique thing. And then if I remember, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but like for Breath of the Wild, it was like there's basically Cave of Ordeals style DLC, and there's like an extra hard mode that they added, like a difficulty and basically more or less like a Cave of Ordeals. I think it's more elaborate than Cave of Ordeals, obviously.
It was basically the same thing. It was two packs, $19.99 for Breath of the Wild. First one was not the story stuff, excuse me. It was the Trial of the Sword, Master Mode, Heroes Path Mode. Excuse me, a few new like a travel medallion and new armor, and that's kind of like mirrors Age of Calamity. And then Champions Ballad, which is the story stuff.
Oh right,
was pack 2. And they kind of did the same thing. So I guess it's not fully unexpected when you look at that. But
it just seems like if
some of that stuff seemed like should have been included.
For as much as that game sold, I kind of was like, I don't know, it might have been unrealistic expectation on my part for the first Breath of the Wild, but like part of me was kind of like I expected like more from the DLC for Breath of the Wild, considering how well and it did, how successful it was. Like I was kind of expecting like a big island, expansion DLC or something, like something where like you just sail and load out to a whole new like chunk of area that's like brand new to explore, got its own little story going for it. And and the same thing with Hyrule Warriors. It's I was just kind of like, I believe the game, I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but like I believe the game ended on somewhat of a cliffhanger or something, and there is story DLC coming, so I guess that's part of it. But
for Age of Calamity,
it's
like
not really cliffhanger, but like sort of like a let's get ready for our next big whatever adventure. I don't know. Like I personally I will not get into spoilers on it, but like I was kind of like I was super like
it's meant, as far as we know, it's not meant to be. It's its own thing because they cheated with the prequel thing. Like it's alternate timeline. It's not. It's not. It's not a real prequel to Breath of the Wild. It's not.
No, I know.
It's nothing to do with the sequel. Yeah, it was their way to get around it.
They went there with
without spoiling anything. Moving on though, this next one I feel like is, well, if Nintendo's not going to do it, we'll might as well try and get on the craze. Chocobo GP, or Square Enix Mario Kart, was revealed, and it's It's Square Enix's Mario Kart. It's Chocobo Racing Mario Kart. With
I thought this was a remake of the PS1 game at first. It's not.
It's not.
I thought it was.
It looks pretty good. The character selection they showed, I kind of like. I like seeing Gilgamesh. I mean, instead of like item boxes, it's magicites. I mean, you use classic Final Fantasy spells as the abilities, and I guess you can collect multiple to power them up.
Yeah, it uses an extremely Diddy Kong Racing style of power up system. So like, you stack the colored, specific colored types of power ups and like make them better by stacking them and stuff, and that's really cool. It actually has actual mainline Final Fantasy characters. We were kind of like
Vivi, Gilgamesh,
Steiner's in there.
Yeah.
Someone was saying that the Cid in the game is probably the Cid from 4. He's driving a tank.
Oh, yeah. What are the
he's
dwarf
got like
tanks?
Sort of, he's got like this military guard. He's like got like a dash. And like, I think some people were saying like, I think that's 4 Cid. So it's kind of neat that they're actually, it's not just like here's Chocobo and then there's another Chocobo and another Chocobo and then there's like a white mage and a black mage and a Moogle
and a Tonberry. It's like this the usual suspects.
It's not just sort of like generic like nameless monster creature stuff. So I was kind of happy to see like Vivi and Steiner and like hopefully there's more like that, because if I remember correctly, like Squall was in one of the PS1 Chocobo racing games, and I think Cloud was an unlockable at some in it as well, something like that. So yeah, like I'm hoping to see more actual like Final Fantasy characters. And I think if you notice, like they're racing around in Alexandria from Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah.
So neat.
Yeah, I'm down for this. I don't care. I'm all for more Mario Kart style clones.
I think the most surprising thing was when they're like, "This is a Switch exclusive." Like,
it's
launching exclusively on Switch, and I was like, "Okay." I don't know why you okay, like there's something weird. Okay. Like I just want to say there's something really weird about Square Enix's Switch support. Like it seems like all their like, and I'm not downplaying the games, but it seems like a lot of their like side projects kind of like get pushed on the Switch.
Well, it's not necessarily side projects. They have one of their business divisions within them. They're dedicated to making Switch titles. They started that up after 2017. They announced that they were going to have it. I mean, Team Asano has like pretty much been the team doing that, but like it's more than them. They do have a division that is meant to bring Switch exclusives because of how well the system sold, especially in Japan. It is like, hey, you need to have games on the system, but it's also specialized.
Well, it's like, okay, this game looks like a lot of fun, but obviously it doesn't look like Square's putting like the enormity of their budgets behind
that's it. Like they're like the B tiers that like everyone argued vanished, back in the start of the HD generation, that like HD killed off, at the in between indie and AAA. This is Square Enix found that niche for Switch, and they've been doing pretty well with it.
So it's weird to me. I guess what I'm saying is I'm surprised Square Enix hasn't really put forward like a big budget game on the system, like a big mainline project. In regards to, because like you've got Trials of Mana and you've got like that Actraiser game that came out. You have Triangle Strategy and the Bravely Defaults and stuff like that. So you have those games which are good and they're absolutely. I'm not diminishing them, but like. You got to admit that the money Square is putting into, say, Forspoken or Final Fantasy VII Remake or 16 is nowhere near the kind of money they're putting into Triangle Strategy or Chocobo GP or whatever.
True. It's because those other projects are multi-platform sans Switch, so they expect they think they're going to have a bigger return on their investment because they're going to be multi-platform. The thing is, if Switch was anywhere near capable of running those games native, like not with like a cloud version, not with a weird like extra effort, but like was a easier port job, they would clearly put out a Switch version for those games if they could. It's just they probably do the cost benefit analysis and they're like, no, we are better served by doing smaller projects that are on the system that give us a better return on our investment. And I mean that that leads into whole other types of suggestions we don't need to get into, but I think that's why we see it. But I mean the same thing, like, and I think they just don't want a cloud version because they're not convinced cloud versions of like 16 or Forspoken.
Well,
or
they're doing it for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that is true.
I also feel
that's a good point. Maybe that's a testing ground for them to be like, all right, let's test it on this, and if it works, maybe we consider 16.
Should Final Fantasy VII ever end its exclusivity reign?
Oh yeah.
Right? I feel they're going to be missing. They're going to be missing out really bad if they don't make a Final Fantasy VII Cloud Edition.
Yeah, it's so perfect.
I feel like once, if they have the ability to go multi-plat on that game, they're going to be missing a huge opportunity to not make Cloud Edition.
That would be amazing. Woo, yeah. Well, third parties are a hot topic in relation to speculation for this next thing, because they gave a teaser of an announcement for the final Sakurai Presents was dated for October 5th. It's going to be everything. They confirmed it'll be everything. It'll be the character reveal and the deep dive, all the final like everything is going to be in there. This is it. I'm with you, Simmons. Like you said earlier, I have no problem with how they did this, because I think it should get its own, it should get its own thing. Yeah. It should be, it's the celebration. It's this like culmination of this effort. It's just now we have a final date. It's like we now have basically a little over a week and a half to the final speculation and what they will be doing. And I mean, there was a split second there I thought they might be like, wait, they're actually going to say a season 3 pass? Like, no way. Like, this is not happening. And they already said, no, come on.
Yeah. And Koizumi even reiterated after the announcement, like, this is the final character. This is it. Like, we've been doing this for 3 years. We're not doing any more, kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad they announced it. I thought it was going to be TGA. I thought this was going to be the Game Awards.
Oh, the Game Awards. That seems too, even though it could come out in December, that seemed like just too late. I feel like I don't know.
I mean, it was pushing it to the end of the season.
The promise thing, but like,
I was kind of like, I kind of feel like they'll announce it at Game Awards, and then like a week or two later there'll be the Sakurai deep dive, and then that'll be it. But they're just kind of like saying, now we're doing everything at the beginning of October, like, and this is it, this is the end. So hold your breath, count to 10. Here we go. This is the last Smash Ultimate character reveal. So it's exciting, but on the other hand, it's kind of like, I'm just gonna let it doesn't matter who this character ends up being. It doesn't matter. People are gonna be upset.
Yeah, because it's the end. Because they know there is no other chance. It's like that is the end.
No matter how many people it'll make happy, like there's gonna be millions of people who will be upset that it wasn't said other character, many other wanted characters in the game. So I don't envy Sakurai. I feel like he should go into hiding on the 6th of October. Go on a long, private, unknown, undisclosed location vacation for a long time.
Oh man.
Yes. The internet's gonna melt down, regardless of who it is, but all because of who it won't be. So
yeah,
I'm still excited. I'm personally well fed when it comes to Smash Brothers, especially Ultimate. So I'm like, it could be whoever. It could be Barney the dinosaur or whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, I just like looking back how much they've done. It's like whoever it is, like, yeah, you're right. There'll be backlash, but there'll be people happy. That's how it always is. It's just gonna be amplified because it's the last one.
If I was to say make any like, okay, but who would it be kind of thing, I'm like, all right, here's my one thing. I would pick probably someone like Aloy, just to have a
Sony rep. Yeah, I've heard people think about Sony rep.
Like, I don't really care if it is or it isn't, one way or the other. But if it was like up to me, and I was going to have one last kind of like, okay, who could it be? A Sony rep. Some people are like, oh, Kratos would be much better. I'm like, well, yeah, but it seems like Sony really likes pushing Aloy as a guest character right now. And
that is true.
Fortnite and
Genshin
Genshin
Impact.
And so I'm like, okay, that seems to be, and she's fine. She'd be a great character for Smash. Kratos would be a great character for Smash. Wanderer, yeah. Maybe not Nate.
Wanderer,
I don't know about Nathan Drake and
that
Joel
stage would be
a little
amazing
weird, like,
for Wanderer. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Like in the music and oh man, that's the one. Okay, yeah, but I mean,
yeah.
shit,
Okay, there you go. That's yeah, I know. But so for me, I'm like, okay, like yeah, a Sony rep would kind of, to me, would the nicest bow you could wrap on Smash Brothers Ultimate would be a Sony rep. But Sony doesn't seem like they're in the business of playing nice like Microsoft. So
yeah, I just
not expecting it
for sure.
I'm expecting a Pokemon.
Well, the character who the hero of Smash Brothers canonically, the one who survived to give the others a chance to even fight back in Ultimate, little Kirby, also got a big announcement in this direct. Might be one of the biggest announcements of the direct. A brand new fully 3D Kirby game, Kirby in the Forgotten Land, that is a 3D platformer in drawing comparisons to Odyssey-esque. I wouldn't say it's like literally Odyssey, but definitely going in that more Mario 3D direction.
To me it felt like this completely is right in the middle between Odyssey and 3D World.
Yeah, that's a
design.
Absolutely,
it looks like it's right in the middle of that. And can you believe they've never done a 3D Kirby? I mean,
like this style, yeah, like this type of 3D. Like
there's never been a 3D platformer Kirby. The closest thing you got was like that mode in Kirby Air Ride.
Yeah.
Where like you're zooming around the city, freeform. Like that is like the most 3D Kirby's ever been gameplay wise. It's crazy to think. I know that when Kirby, there was a really cool, I don't know why, I don't know if it was a Wada Asks or if it was just some sort of news post, but they actually did peel the curtain back a little bit at how when Return to Dreamland came out on the Wii, and they actually showed 3 canceled prototypes for the Wii Kirby.
Oh yeah.
One of them was like a hand-drawn, like super high-res, like 2D version, which they were like, yeah, I really regret that didn't happen. But one of them they said they toyed around with was a 3D Kirby, between the GameCube and the Wii days. Like Hal had toyed around with a 3D version of Kirby, but they said they just couldn't get it right. Or they weren't satisfied with it. So it's crazy that it's been like 25 plus, almost 30 years. Kirby's never gone full 3D platformer.
Well,
so
yeah, I will say I'm not someone who's ever really been into the Kirby games, despite recognizing them for, it is a mainstay. It does do generally well. But it's just never clicked with me. But this, I'm into 3D platformers, a good looking 3D platformers. And this passed my visual test. I was like, I actually want to play this when it comes out. This will be the first Kirby game I might play. I think I played one other to completion for a project, but the one I willingly want to play through to completion. And it just looked good to me. I mean, I like in terms of like gameplay and the concepts for the platforming. And the only thing that I noticed that was a little interesting, because I think that how maybe they're handling this, because you said 3D World, it doesn't look like you have manual camera control. It does look like the camera follows you to maintain kind of like a certain perspective, where Kirby is always either moving up and down would move you like depth wise, and left and right always move you sideways, because it kind of shifted with you during like turn sequences or when you walked out. But if it was camera control, I imagine it'd be like 3D World's camera control and not full 3D like Odyssey.
I'm gonna guess there'll be areas where you have camera control and a lot of areas you don't. That's my guess. Like sometimes you will, most of the time you won't.
Yeah, like maybe the boss fight, because against that big like gorilla thing, maybe that they give you it. But I mean, if that's their way they want to handle it. I mean, the layouts of the environments that I'm seeing don't really seem like they require you to rotate that drastic, like that granular. It just seems like the 4-point rotation or even 8-point rotation would be enough for the camera.
I will say visually, I think it looked a little underwhelming. I
That's
kind of like,
true. It's also
what I
you were
mean
even pointing.
mostly
You
is
were also
that,
pointing out as a caveat, Simmons, just to like before like haters come. It's like you are saying like this is a compressed video in a stream, and even like the YouTube version. So like
it
maybe
is,
when you get your hands and see it,
yeah,
it might look a little better.
streaming compresses stuff, definitely, and YouTube compresses stuff. So like you're not getting the best look at anything ever when you're looking at stuff on stream or on YouTube. But it does seem like mostly like it's, I'm not talking about like, oh, how come it's not more detailed? I'm like, it just looks like the textures actually look fuzzy, like low res, like a lot of them, like especially the opening shot in the mall. I was like, it looks a little low. Actually kind of thought it was a Game Freak game. It looks so low res. Um, so, but it was Kirby, and I was like, okay. But I remember Star Allies looking really, really good. Like I remember being like, that looks visually very delightful, but it also ran at 30 frames. But like, yeah, like it just, something about it seemed like the game looks adorable, and I'm excited for the game, and I'm gonna play the game absolutely. But I will be, I feel like I do have to admit, like I was feeling like it seems like the texture work seems a little low res. I
It
don't know
does look
why.
like it in places. Like some of the outdoor shots look better than the indoor for some. Like I don't know. There's some shots that look pretty good to me. Like the one with the neon lights probably like mask it a little better for like the indoor,
Yeah,
but like that kind of like aesthetic made it look kind of like cool. But like once you go into like that mall looking environment, there's just something like fuzzy about the shot. But when you're
yeah,
outdoors, it like I guess it's like the lighting and the shadows hitting stuff's a little off. But then you go to the shot outdoor, like it's like a carnival like theme park area, and
yeah.
that actually looks much better. And it's not really doing that. Um, I know. I think it'll look probably fine in person when I play it, and also it didn't look like there were any performance issues at least when I in the trailer. So if they're targeting performance like 60 frames or a stable frame rate, that's going to be the most important thing because obviously we just talked about Age of Calamity and having its performance issues. Like man, there's a way to get that game just run at a stable frame rate. Would have appreciated it a lot, even at
Yeah,
like 30 frames, man.
yeah. Part of me wonders if maybe it is this way. Yeah, maybe they did kind of like downscale it a little bit, so it'll run just fine on the Switch. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Hard to say. I feel like I'd be lying if I didn't, if my first impression wasn't like I almost thought it was a Pokemon game for how low res it looked.
I thought it was I thought it was Splatoon at first, and I thought it was maybe Shin Megami Tensei, and I was like, "Is this SMT5?" Because of like the environment. It's just
Right, the
a
whole
typical
Bayonetta.
environment for like Kirby games. Usually like these fantasy candy food theme, like whatever, like clouds, and it's like no, it's like post-apocalyptic, colorful like city. Like I thought it was like Sonic Adventure or something for a second. I was like, is this maybe a Sonic? Is this Sonic Adventure 3?
Oh yeah.
For a split second, I was like, wait, is Sonic Adventure 3? But no, it's Kirby. But yeah, I'm excited for it. And spring
I'm happy.
2022.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's soon. It's not. The game's probably, honestly, the game's probably done.
Yeah.
They're probably just sitting on it until like March or April or whatever. Like it's probably done or nearly done. It's kind of like interesting that Nintendo kind of held that close to their chest for so long, because like if you think about it, they announced Splatoon 3, which they did update in this, but like that doesn't have a release date, like solid release date. It's just
still 2022.
2022. Same deal with that. Same deal with Zelda. Bayonetta is a whole other story, but like it's funny how Kirby's coming out before most everything else. Probably their first party game outside of Pokemon Legends for the new year. So it's interesting that, and they kept that one close to their chest, like kind of like hidden for this long. But then again, it's also Kirby. Does it really need to, do you need to announce a Kirby game like years out in advance? Nah.
No, this is what they do announce close. And honestly, the best thing the thing I'll wrap up on this for Kirby is that Switch has been the platform to rejuvenate a lot of series for Nintendo, and like some of the biggest entries in their biggest series have been the Switch iterations. So this might be the installment for Kirby that like just propels it into an even bigger franchise. Like people like me who really haven't been into it, this might be the one that gets people into it and like makes it could be a big thing for them.
And they already did the 2D Kirby pretty early on in the system, because usually usually a 2D Kirby ends a system's life. So like this one, their Star Allies came out really early on and into it. So it's like, okay, cool. So now this is actually like, oh, well, like mainline Kirby, not like a puzzle spinoff, which they'd like to do as well. But like it's interesting that Hal was kind of like, it does seem a bit like, what can we do to like get like some new Kirby fans? Because like for the most part, like Return to Dreamland, Star Allies, maybe you could argue Epic Yarn, they kind of weren't. Epic Yarn maybe a little bit more mainstream, but like they weren't. You could argue that Hal wasn't really trying to entice any new people into a Kirby game. And I think this is kind of like, we don't want to get away from what Kirby is, but we actually do want to try to get some fresh faces or some fresh blood, you know, looking into and buying a Kirby game. And that's why I think it's 3D. That's why I think, you know, the whole, and it's for you, it's obviously it's working because, you know, I think you're probably a lot more excited about this than if it was just say another 2D update, you know, another 2D Kirby game, as in Star Allies or, you know, Triple Deluxe or whatever, right? Like, you know, this is probably way more exciting for you because it's like it's some new territory for Kirby. It looks all kinds of adorable. I don't, you know, it remains to be seen how tough it is or how, you know, isn't, because Kirby games tend to be on the pretty easy side, but they're very comfy games, and you know, I don't think Kirby definitely is not a game that needs to be hard either. So I don't know. I'm excited for the game. I'm happy it's happening. It looks like the perfect kind of game to release early in the year. So I'm just happy they did it. It's weird, you know, and I don't even think it's that weird that they held it close to their chest. It was just kind of funny how it got a slightly more concrete release date than say Splatoon 3.
Yeah, which I mean indicates it's definitely it's further along, as you said, and they wanted to come out at that time. We got a few. We already mentioned these already. We got a few updates. We got the Animal Crossing tease about the Roost Cafe. There would be an October Animal Crossing Direct, and there'd be another update in November.
I'm just glad they didn't spend 15 minutes on Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
but it's nice. Really didn't need it.
It was funny because within at our studio, we were talking about how it felt like the game kind of like fell off, and it was like they're just repeating the same updates from last year, and like despite Doug Bowser saying after their E3 showing, oh, we got Animal Crossing updates planned, stay tuned. It's like, well, now here we are. It's like, okay, they just took this a little further out than we thought, but they're here. We also talked about a little bit earlier the Mario Golf Super Rush, the free update that dropped as well. New Donk City, not Toda, Koopa Troopa, Ninja, playable characters, 2 new courses. Just, you know, treating it as a game, like these service updates. And then we've got a bunch of like random game announcements. We got Disney Magical World 2 Enchant Edition, or Kingdom Hearts Me. It's like
Miitopia Disney.
Miitopia, yeah. It's like this year Mii's walking around with like Disney characters. It just looked ridiculous. I was like,
it looked a little weird.
And Bandai Namco's making it. I was like, oh wow, this is like so weird. Everything about this game. But perhaps more interesting is this, even though it just got an announcement at PlayStation's showcase of getting a remake, we're getting the OG Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic for Switch.
Yeah, KOTOR OG. Cool. I guess. I mean, it's nice that that's going to happen. It kind of feels a bit like the Final Fantasy VII situation, where like Final Fantasy VII OG showed up on the Switch finally, you know, on a Nintendo system after all these years, but then there's also this big old expensive remake that's also coming, you know, later down the road. So neat. I'm almost a little surprised it wasn't both. It was just one, not 1 and 2, but whatever. It's just something they could sell later. So yeah, and there was like a montage of other stuff. I would say, outside of say Square, I can't remember any like big third-party announcements. There was Castlevania Advanced Collection, which I mean, it leaked. It leaked pretty heavily. Yeah, you know, like
so much. And it was shadowed up. Nice. I mean, that didn't need to have a long lead time. Like great that this came out and was available to buy it, but it's also multi-platform. So.
I'd say Shadow Drop was also probably the right call, because like if you announced, hey, you know, Advanced Collection, cool, but then like it comes out months later, most people probably would have forgotten about it, honestly. So
we got we talked about before recording, but I mean, it was to bring it up again here. Dying Light 2 Stay Human, cloud version, another cloud version of a game, which seems to be like the clear case of Nintendo or some companies, that's what they want to do. They want to try out these cloud versions, but that's coming out next year. It's going to be, I believe it's day and date with Dying Light 2, but we're getting the first Dying Light like platinum edition or platinum version later this year. And that is an actual game running on Switch, not a cloud version. And you can see the night and day, like, because when you're seeing the cloud version, like, wait a second, there's no way this is the Switch version they're showing footage of. But wait, there's no warning sign saying this is not, oh, it's a cloud version. Then you see this version's like, this looks like a Switch port. It's like, I mean, we used to marvel at people getting games like The Witcher 3, getting the Doom games to run on Switch. But now it's just like, it's very clear that some of these games, it's like that novelty is worn off about, oh, you can get it on here. It's like handheld. Some people do still care about handheld, but I think we're approaching that point where it is now diminishing returns for these higher end games getting lower end ports on Switch. It's just not. I would imagine maybe they are. Maybe I'm wrong, and the numbers say otherwise, that these games are still selling better than expectations for these publishers, but I don't know. Like, I have to imagine like it has to be at a point where it's not holding up anymore.
Yeah, well, the system's kind of aging. You know, it's getting close to its 5th birthday. The thrill is kind of gone. You know, like a marriage. You know, after 5 years. So, I don't know, man. Like, you're right. There probably has to be, because like, remember, like both Outer games, Outer Wilds, Outer Worlds, both of them showed up on Switch, and they both kind of seem to be like with little fanfare, I would argue. Like Witcher 3 was kind of like this miracle port. So was the first Doom. Doom Eternal was delayed, but still like a miracle port, right? But when we get Outer Worlds shows up, and I'm sure it was a hard thing to downscale and get operating on the Switch, but like it's to me, it never really seemed like there was a whole bunch of fanfare for that game when it finally did come out, on the Switch. So it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe the thrill of playing a severely gimped version of a game portably is gone now. So
yeah,
I don't. For Nintendo, the gravy train never stops. But I have to wonder, not for Nintendo, but for the third parties. Because like CD Projekt Red did say that Witcher 3 sold way better than they thought it would.
Yeah, that's the thing. And same with the original Doom. Like it said that they were actually like happy with the numbers they saw. That's why they kept pushing for Doom Eternal to happen.
I have to wonder if maybe this gravy train ride, it has ended or is ending soon for the third parties who are like pushing these very downgraded ports onto the system or running the. I mean, I don't know. I'm very curious to see how the cloud edition of these games run.
That's the thing. It's not just run, but like I want to know about like the performance like of these cloud versions. Have we even heard of any of any of them? How they have they been happy? Like was Remedy happy in 505 happy with, or at least Remedy happy with the cloud version of Control? Was IO Interactive happy with Hitman 3 cloud version? It's like I don't know.
There's the other weird thing too, where in Japan, not here, in Japan, they have cloud versions of Resident Evil 7 for the Switch and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I can't believe Ubisoft didn't try to put the cloud version of Assassin's Creed Odyssey out in America. Only in Japan. I don't understand that. Like, it's so weird to me. But like, I don't know. Like I had heard at the time that the sales in Japan weren't really great for the cloud edition. I'm like, well, no kidding, because they're playing it on the train, so they don't have a stable connection. So,
yeah, that's the limitations. I was trying to Google like Hitman 3 cloud version sales, and I get a Reddit thread from a user who's like, Hitman 3 cloud version is unplayable during peak hours, and a bunch of the comments are agreeing like this is like the problem with cloud versions of Switch games during peak hours of internet usage. They start getting like laggy, and you notice performance issues. So I mean, that's just that's the nature of them. So I have to wonder, that it's not quite, especially with Nintendo, it's definitely not there yet. So that's why I don't really get invested in these cloud versions, and I don't expect them to do as well potentially as maybe a lower effort, like a low end port job, not low effort. It's obviously high effort to make those ports run, but the end product doesn't look as good as like the other versions.
High effort for a low end run.
But it's gonna be. I wonder if it's a lower cost. I don't even know if like the maintenance for the game, for the servers for that to connect to the games. I don't know. I wish there was more literature or more like developer interviews. Maybe there is, and I'm just not aware of it. I'd love to be pointed towards that. But it's just so every time I say cloud version, I'm just like, oh, cool. I guess some people are happy, but I have no idea if that makes a dent in anything. I just don't know what that is. And maybe these companies have to try them out to start somewhere. Maybe this is like the first steps towards when we get to there, that text there, like these games paved the way. We now know some of the pitfalls and the issues, and we can work around them.
I have to wonder if maybe the other companies are kind of like waiting it out to see what Nintendo's going to do beyond 2022, because to jump forward, really far forward, we have a really good idea of what Nintendo's next 2022 looks like, right? Like we know Pokemon Legends, Kirby, Forgotten Land, Splatoon 3, Bayonetta 3, Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. There's other strong hints of other games from other major first parties in 2022. Mm-hmm. Prime 4, I would say probably definitely not coming out in 2022. That's I
imagine we will see something of it next year. But like your point is, they seem like they have a pretty good lineup for 2022, plus some potential things for beyond as well. Like it looks like they have a stronger going forward.
What does Nintendo's 23 look like? Let's say all the announced and rumored projects get out by next year. Like, Metroid Prime 1 remaster and, a Donkey Kong game by Tokyo. But let's say they get all that out, right? What does Nintendo's 23 actually start looking like? Because
that's so kind of far out.
It is, but I am also kind of seeing what I consider the Wii cliff, where if you remember, 2010 was this banner year for the Wii. It had GoldenEye Remake, Kirby Epic Yarn, Epic Mickey. It had Donkey Kong Country Returns. It had a lot, like they announced the 3DS. They had all this great stuff. And then 2011 hit, and like we went, like the sales and the interest went off a cliff. And it ended the year with Skyward Sword, but there was like hardly anything. I think there was like Kirby Return to Dreamland. It was a very dry year for the Wii in 2011. And the Wii was highly successful every year up to that point, and then just sort of hit that plateau and then just jumped off a cliff. So I'm not doom. I don't want to say I'm doomsaying, but I am kind of like, well, you have a very, very good 2022. I mean, by 2023, when we're 6 years into the Switch and 2 years into the PS5 era of games, and like, what is third-party support even going to look like at that point?
I mean, I know what you're getting at here. I mean, again, this is all very like early speculation, but it's like, even if they were to supposedly have a killer first-party lineup, even for 2023, it's like the further in we get into next gen, like it's the questions will start to obviously be asked about. What are you doing next for hardware as well, Nintendo? Like, are you gonna like? We have the OLED version, still like nothing about Pro, like that never has not come to pass yet. So will they just hold off and make a new Switch model altogether down the line? Will we get an incremental upgrade? I mean, I imagine that stuff was going to resurface sometime next year, and especially as we get closer to the end of next year, we'll probably start to get some stuff about that. But I at the same time, while I understand like that's like you're thinking about that, I wouldn't start worrying about that till like next E3. After we see like next E3, it's like, all right, we have a better idea of like more things. It just seems so early. But in terms of like hardware, sure, it's like we're getting to that point where it's like people are obviously asking and thinking about when have we got to start talking about Switch 2 or some kind of better hardware.
I feel like you brought it up earlier. Disco Elysium doesn't look or run nearly as well on the Switch, and that's an isometric indie game. Like, are we getting to the point now where like even the indies are starting to struggle?
Hey, Sonic Colors, Sonic Colors.
There you go, like, Sonic Colors.
That ran on Wii. Like that was. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
That's what I'm kind of saying. Like, what point is like, are we kind of like quickly approaching a point in time where like third parties and Nintendo's own internal studios are struggling to get anything else out of this system? Like, I worry a little bit like that maybe like we're running out of milk in the udder here for the Switch. That's how they'll save it. 1, 2, 3 Switch. But yeah, it's obviously it's not anything to be concerned about now or for next year, because I think that, again, next year looks like a super big banner year for the Switch. But I am starting to think about, okay, when we get to that 6-year birthday on the Switch, what's it gonna look like? Because we're, again, Dying Light 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy, they're already kind of just like, we're just doing a cloud version. We're not even gonna bother trying to like downgrade it. We're just a cloud version. And that I feel like that's just gonna keep happening. Either we're just gonna keep seeing more cloud versions, or I kind of wonder if we're just not gonna see projects at all. Like it might just end up being like Forspoken and 16 and 7 remake, where it's just like, no, these games just don't come out on the Switch. They're just not even thought about.
It's the reality.
And then it starts to become kind of like Nintendo kind of seems to settle back into its own thing, which is, again, not so much of a problem for me, because like I play Nintendo systems for Nintendo games, and I play my PS5 for the high end stuff, right? Or PC, my PC for the high end stuff. So that's fine, but it does kind of seem like maybe the honeymoon phase with all these like early successes, third party and indie wise, on the Switch. I wonder if maybe it's getting kind of coming to an end when stuff like Disco Elysium doesn't even really look or run
the
very
same
well
point. To bring back to the announcements and like the updates, this next one was we got an update on Project Triangle Strategy, which is now Triangle Strategy. Like we talked about a little bit earlier. Like we have these.
They were just sticking with that name. I was kind of like, it's just going to call it Triangle Strategy.
So now I just like any new game from this team, when they have a project, you just drop the project from it for sure. I will say this. I do think the way maybe forward for at least the next year or two is the studios that have teams dedicated to making Switch specific games are probably going to make out better, because like this team has clearly found out a style of game that they've been going back to that works for the Switch. Yeah,
it definitely seems to be in the company's favor to just think about Switch only when you make these games, like Bravely Default, which did have a PC release, right? Monster Hunter Rise, Triangle Strategy, Octopath Traveler, Chocobo GP coming up, Monster Hunter Stories 2, even, although that kind of ran like really roughly on the Switch with a day and date PC. But like that seems to be the way to go if you're going to do a third party game, if you're a third party publisher and you want to get part of that Switch pie, it kind of seems to benefit you better to just think about the Switch exclusively when you make for it, because it's going to be way easier to make a game for the Switch and then port it to a much more powerful system than the other way around that we saw with like Witcher and Doom. So yeah, I mean, that might be the way forward. And it's not, and to be fair to the Switch, like it's not like its sales have stagnated yet. Like it's still the best selling console month after month after month.
Yeah, and we're about to get
abroad, so
we're about to get we're like a week and a half away, 2 weeks away from the OLED model launching. I mean, it's already sold out, but whatever. But this next update they did is clearly designed to increase like the revenue they get from their services and maybe like help bolster this value proposition of owning a Switch. We got the long rumored N64 games coming to Nintendo Online. By the way, I'm skipping over Metroid Dread because I didn't watch the stuff because it had spoilers in it. Like they're going very hard on like trying to sell this game. It's so close to release. I just don't want to see anything else about it. So unfortunately, I'm not talking about it.
The launch trailer is going to come out and it's going to have the last cutscene and end credits.
At this point. So like we will talk about Metroid Dread once it's out. Once we've played it, we're planning to do a lot of coverage for it. So just stay tuned and be a little bit more patient. But like I just don't want to get I like literally during reactions just covered my eyes and looked down and took my headphones off at one point off my ears, so I couldn't hear it anymore. But after that, they did get into Nintendo Online subscription. N64 games are being added. We had that leak about the N64 controller. Nintendo was like patenting that and trying to keep it hidden. But the other addition, I think, was a little bit of a surprise because so many outlets were reporting on Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games coming to Switch at some point for the online service. That wasn't it. We got Genesis games are coming. So N64 and Genesis games coming to Switch Online. There'll be more details in October. However, they did confirm it'll be something called an expansion pack and it's going to be an additional cost on top of the existing subscription,
which a lot of people are upset about. I'm not upset about it because it's $20 a year right now. Like it's so minusculely cheap. It's like it's $1 something a month for Nintendo Switch Online. Now, granted, they have definitely the worst and most like empty online service imaginable, but it's so cheap. Now, depending on how much they upcharge for N64, you know, maybe I'll change my opinion on it or not. But like, a lot of people don't realize this. You can play NES and Super NES games online.
That was the big deal. That was a big, because
like,
I said that. I remember when they showed it and they showed multiplayer, I called out. I was like, because there was some of the guys were like, is this really going to be worth extra? I'm like, but online multiplayer. I remember it was Blood. The call out Blood initially said no, they're not, but Blood meant like added functionality. He thought like they would add into each game like a multiplayer,
right.
And it's like no. Within the service, they have a way where you can connect to another player, and then through the game's local multiplayer, you're just connected already. So it simulates.
It's actually very well done. Like it's really cool. Actually, it actually functions like Parsec. Where, like you just join someone's game and you can watch the other person leave a game and then start another, and you just go from game to game within that library. It's actually kind of cool. The one thing I think is going to be a bit of a shock for a lot of people is that when you're playing 2-player or 4-player multiplayer games on the N64, it's still going to be split screen. Like
that's the thing. You're not getting
getting your own individual screen each.
Exactly.
No, it's you're playing on Parsec and someone booted up an emulator and you're just playing, 2-player on someone else's ROM. And that's because that's exactly what it is. So yeah, like when you're playing F-Zero and Mario Kart, like it's gonna be split screen. So the only one that won't be will be like Mario Tennis.
No, there will be tricks around that. So like, I mean, you could do elaborate workarounds. So if I connected to you for Mario Kart or we did a 4-player Mario Kart match, I could just boot up my like streaming software, capture the game capture, crop it, and then blow up it's still gonna be small and blown up, but like they're not giving you your own screen. I mean, I think that's where some people thought maybe they were going to build in extra functionality, but at the same time, I see a lot of people being kind of excited to be finally like, I could play Mario Kart online with people. And the one everyone's asking about, like GoldenEye. Will GoldenEye ever? Well, and it's not there. Will it ever be there? And will you get multiplayer? And if not, maybe Perfect Dark. Because
Dark, yes.
Because Banjo is there. Yeah, Banjo Kazooie's on there. Actually, nice to get that out of the way and be like, there is hope for these games.
That was actually my biggest surprise. I was shocked to see Banjo on there because they sell it on Rare Replay right now, and it's on individually. You could buy it from the Xbox store. Like, granted, it's a updated, higher res version of Banjo Kazooie on Rare Replay and on the Xbox Live store. But like, this is probably just going to be the old, like, Banjo Kazooie really wasn't that blurry for an N64 game, but the old blurry, N64 version of Banjo Kazooie. I was shocked that Microsoft was playing nice because they didn't have to. There was nothing in Microsoft to obligate them to be this nice to Nintendo about it. Like,
wonder if it was part of a bigger, larger deal or something. Like maybe when they brought Banjo over to Smash, it was part of that negotiation. Like, hey, we also want the classic game for upcoming service. The only
game, because I was saying beforehand when it was still in rumor territory, I was like, you're not getting any Rare games. You're not getting Diddy Kong Racing either because that has Conker and Banjo in it. Like, I'm sorry,
but now it's like maybe.
But now they have Banjo because, like, to me, I'm like, Diddy Kong was the only possible gimme they could have gotten because, like, Microsoft, Nintendo could have said to me, like, look, we want to put Diddy Kong on this service. We know you own 2 of the characters in it, but you can't do anything with the game because we own 2 of the characters as well. So why don't you just let us have this? And I thought that was the only game that could possibly show up on the N64 Online. But then here along comes Banjo Kazooie. Like, Microsoft and Philly are just kind of like, yeah, I guess, sure, whatever. Like, I mean, it's just spreading brand awareness for them, anyways. At the end of the day, because it's like if they make a new Banjo Kazooie, it's going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC, and whatever. It's just a Microsoft Trojan horse, just. Sure, whatever. People are going to
Right.
play this and be like, if they
Yeah.
want to play the new one, we'll make a new one, and they have to come to get Game Pass.
Exactly. I mean,
everybody wins.
and everyone's always speculating about maybe X Cloud service coming to Switch at some point to offer a way to play Xbox games. I mean, the thing about like the N64 game possibilities, I actually had a patron, Logan, who asked about Microsoft playing nicely with Nintendo lately. And this question was asked before the direct. So they were wondering if we'd get any of the rare games on there. So they assume they could put Diddy Kong Racing and Donkey Kong 64 without needing Rare's approval. But I'd love to see Banjo games, Jet Force Gemini, Perfect Dark. So basically, I think you answered this already. You said like anything but GoldenEye is probably within the realm of possibility.
And Mickey Speedway USA.
Okay, well that one obviously.
No one even remembers that game, but it's
that's licensing nightmare stuff. I mean, GoldenEye, it's the license. Yeah, absolutely.
Because GoldenEye is split between many different people. You have
it's
Rare,
a weird situation.
I don't even know who has the game publishing. IO Interactive's doing the new one, but like.
Dude, is that like a specific one-off project? Yeah, that's the thing. It's so convoluted, and that's why.
And there is the Ian Fleming's family estate, which owns it, and you have to go through them as well. So the whole thing is just like, no, you're not getting it.
It's like anime licensing, basically, with those conglomerates.
But you know what? Perfect Dark was better anyways. So
yeah, you get the hope for the better game. Yeah, for sure. Well, let me ask you this, Simmons, for N64. One last thing. This comes from patron Anthony. Is there any lesser known game that you want to be added to this N64 service? Because I think this has the possibility.
Many. Vigilante 8.
Also, and like I can't wait to see like the differences between Japanese and like what they're gonna get versus us.
Vigilante 8's kind of like a sort of like lesser known one that I would really
Vigilante 8. Yeah, I remember that.
As far as like because you're not paying for these individually and you just kind of get them as sort of like a big chunk. I would like, they're not great, but like, hey, it'd be cool to see the Chameleon Twists on there 1 and 2.
Oh yeah.
It would be really interesting if they could put the Bomberman games, because there were 3 Bomberman games on N64. Bomberman Hero, Bomberman 64, and Bomberman 64 Second Attack, which strangely enough, Bomberman 64 Part 2 has music by Yasunori Mitsuda of Chrono Trigger fame. Like,
I did not know
some
that.
of the tracks. It's so bizarre. It's
so out of place.
There's 7 composers for Bomberman 64 The Second Attack, and he's one of them. And it's just kind of like, what?
Well,
you go if you scrub through that OST, you'll be like, why the fuck? Why is there a Chrono Trigger song in the middle of this? Like,
man, now I hope it's added so I can hear that. I mean, I can just go on YouTube and listen to it.
Sure, but it's definitely one of those where it's like, oh, that would be pretty cool. Rayman 2 would be nice, but I think Ubisoft probably sells.
What about Space Station Silicon Valley? Body Harvest.
Sorry. You just said it right there. Body Harvest. That is the one.
Body Harvest. Yeah.
The proto GTA 3, the lizard growing legs and coming out of the ocean version of Grand Theft Auto 3. It's in an incredibly, I mean, it's a very archaic and dated, and it looks really fuzzy, and it's like, whatever, but like it's such an incredible timepiece, of a game where it's like, because it's made by DMA Design, which became Rockstar, the main Rockstar team who made GTA 3 and all the GTAs after that. But Body Harvest is the missing link, the very first version, the cellular organism dividing, like it's so interesting to see Body Harvest, because like you see
Rockstar North Limited is
North, right? Yeah, like so it's crazy to see what where it came, because you could see the origins when they had their 3D was like its new thing, because Body Harvest was around. It was announced at the launch or before the launch of the N64, but it didn't come out until 1998. It was delayed heavily. Delayed heavily for the time, what was considered delayed heavily. But yeah, that is such an interesting timepiece. Like, I hope Body Harvest does show up. I don't know who owns it. I think there was maybe possibly some sort of Midway published it, but I think it was kind of like Cruisin' USA, where there was like this there was like some sort of collaboration between Midway and Nintendo on it. So I don't know. And most of Midway got gobbled up by Warner Brothers Interactive, and I don't know if they took the Body Harvest IP with them. I don't know if it's in a similar situation to Cruisin'. I don't know, but I really hope Body Harvest shows up for the posterity more than anything. That's a big one. Legend Space Station Silicon Valley is interesting. It's the only N64 game that cannot run with an expansion pack. You have to have the jumper pack in there. Otherwise it doesn't run. It's the only non-compatible expansion pack game on the system.
That's
I don't know
great.
if that means anything to anyone, but like, it's there.
That's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, that's just a weird aside. Forget there was a couple others. There's also Rocket Robot on Wheels, which was Sucker Punch's first video game.
Jeez.
That'd be interesting to like put on there for posterity. Like, yeah, see where Sucker Punch got its going. It's going. There's a lot of interesting stuff on the N64. A lot of.
Yeah, I wonder if we get the N64 version of RE2.
I was going to bring that up because a lot of people don't know this.
Yeah.
The N64 version of RE2 has features and things in it that other versions don't have. On the minor side, it has a blood color option where you can make it all kinds of different wacky colors for blood, but it has an item randomizer mode, which is I believe exclusive to that version of the game.
Yes.
So yeah, it has an item randomizer mode, which that's something that's done in modding and speedrunning all the time, but it actually happened way back then on S4. It has EX files, which are special lore documents, never in any other version of RE2, only in the N64 version, and it's the only version of the classic RE2 that has analog controls. I would love to see that game put on there. That game to continue the Rockstar connection. That game was made by Angel Studios, which is now known today as Rockstar San Diego. The Red Dead.
Damn. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these big Western developers on N64, like they were just small. They were starting up there, and they Nintendo kind of like everyone was lambasting the third-party efforts in N64. It's like a lot of stuff passed them by.
Yeah, most of the early retro studios was Iguana, who made Turok.
Yeah.
So they won't. There's a couple of things we probably should say that I do not expect to show up. Turok 1 and 2 will not show up because they're being sold by Night Dive Studios right now. So they're not going to let it freebie go. 3 and Rage Wars is kind of up in the air, but I doubt it. I don't think either Pokemon Stadium will show up.
No, Pokemon Snap was on there. Sorry. Yeah.
I was saying from the beginning, Snap will be the only Pokemon game on there.
Because Stadium's functionality is going to be
like almost dependent entirely on the transfer pack.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, Hey You Pikachu will not be on here because of the voice.
Will not be on there. I don't think Pokemon Puzzle League will be either, just because they already have Panel de Pon on SNES. It could, but I'm just kind of like maybe. It's kind of like they just may not even bother. Yeah, like GoldenEye is the big one that won't be on here.
Yeah, I think that's the highest profile one.
Pretty much anything that's being in a collection,
that's not.
I also have to say none of the wrestling games will be here.
Yeah, I know there are people who want, like, that was one of the things. Those might be a little bit too tricky to get because of licensing hell and like how WWE.
The funny thing is that there were WCW games, there were ECW games, and WWF games. WWE now owns all of those, so it's all one person. However, they're not allowed to use the name WWF, which
it'd have to be. Well, I mean, they could go in and edit that.
You'd have to go in and remove that entirely.
It's just would they want to even do that? And like, I don't know. Maybe
there's a lot of work that would have to go into that. Plus, there is licensing rights to like, the wrestlers' faces and likenesses. And
WWE has all of that under lock and key. They are like, if they want it, they could. It's their call. I mean, if it wants to happen, they can make it. It's just, I think they might want too much money, perhaps, from Nintendo to make it worth their time. That's probably the real reason they might not show up. Is because it's like they'll balk at their offer, basically. Like, no.
Let me offer an olive branch to all the people like enraged by no wrestling games. I'm just telling you, they're not happening. There is a version of, I believe it's No Mercy or WrestleMania 2000, called Virtua Pro Wrestling 3D or Virtua Pro Wrestling 64, where they took that game and re-released it in Japan and stripped out all of the WWF licensing stuff because they didn't have any presence in Japan or whatever licensing reason. So it was called like Virtua Pro or Fire Pro Wrestling 64. So that version could possibly show up, and you would get online, right? Because naturally
Virtual Pro
online.
Wrestling 64.
Yeah, Virtua Pro Wrestling. So maybe we get a Japanese version of Virtua Pro Wrestling, which in essence is the exact same game as either Revenge or WrestleMania 2000. I forget which one.
Japanese counterpart to WCW versus NWO World Tour.
It's World Tour?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the first one. I thought it was Revenge.
Well, there's a first Virtual Pro Wrestling, but it was only on PlayStation.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of there is like an outside shot of getting that, at least something in the spiritual vein of that game made for or put on the N64 Online if they go in and do the Virtua Pro Wrestling version of the game. It won't be No Mercy, but hey, you'd still at least be getting an online version of at least one of those wrestling games without the mainline wrestlers, which I know will hurt a lot of people. So
yeah. I'll be surprised if the N64 service has the rewind function. I want it, but there's been some speculation that might not be possible or too technical. I don't know. I don't
know either. That's a good question.
I would really like it. I mean, there are still limitations on the SNES and NES how far you can rewind, though. But I mean, that would be so cool. I mean, it's such an integral part. I think a gratification for people just to do that. That's because SNES Classic doesn't do that. Like, you only have the save states on that one. You do not have the rewind.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, they're probably not.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no. Okay, let me ask you this: Do you think the N64 Online torpedoes our chances at?
Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. The rewind is on the NSSA Classic.
Okay.
I made. Sorry, it's
I still don't know. I'm still iffy on if they'll have rewind on those. But back to my question, do you think this torpedoed our chances for Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time 3D on Switch by putting these on the N64?
Sorry, say that again.
Okay, so does Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time being on the N64 Online, does that torpedo the chances of Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D getting a Switch port?
I would say no. I mean, it's not impossible, just because on the reverse example of this is we just had 3D All Stars. That was a Nintendo Vault game, and now Mario 64 is available on this service. I remember I actually got a question. I'm sorry, Jesse Blue gave us a Patreon question. It's now outdated, asking about. Brought up, they assumed Mario 64 would be off limits for this service because of it being vaulted, and that would like protect the value. And it's like, no, it's right there, day and date with that thing. So I think Nintendo is about timing. It's about timing with these games that we talked about. So 3 All-Stars is gone. You cannot get that anymore. But people still want Super Mario 64. Well, now you got to pay for this. You missed your window to get this. So for this, I think it's Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask are on this service. So you can get this one. But hey, do you want a different version? Especially different versions, I think the timing becomes a little bit more, there's more leeway with that. They just got to give this a nice window for this to breathe. And then maybe a year or two from now, like, hey, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask aren't big sellers of our service anymore. Like they already did their work, but they still have value. Well, the 3DS versions, we could put those on Switch and charge more money for those. I have even a collection, a Zelda collection, even though they denied that's in the works, they still could technically even do that if they wanted to, and then legitimately just put Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask as part of it. This is a paid thing because they're like, well, some people don't want to pay for an online subscription. They would rather just buy them. Like, this is Nintendo. They'll maximize the money they can make off of stuff. This is what they've been doing. And I know we didn't really talk about Genesis games on here, but the question mark was about, will they add any other services? And what about that rumored Game Boy Color? I think it's also opportunity. Like, it's the same thing, timing. Like, you save that for like another year or two from now. It's like, hey, like, you're going to have to add more. Why put it all at once? I think that was the problem with virtual consoles. They put so much up front on that it diluted it, because people are like, well, it's convenient for people. And they kept adding things every week that, like, eventually was like, it's old news. I think this is increasing the value proposition, even if it's not like, maybe it's not increasing the value proposition is the right way to say it, but like it's generating excitement and buzz because they make this kind of an event. So I think this is their strategy when they're doing this type of stuff.
I think the Genesis obviously is not as exciting as the N64 because every 6 months, Sega puts out a Genesis collection.
Yeah, there's Genesis collections and there's games here from the Genesis collections.
However, there is shit like Musha, and that's exciting because Musha's been hard to find and expensive since the game came out. So that's pretty cool. Also, you don't, like, again, this is not going to be like paying for a whole separate Genesis collection, and it's online. Streets of Rage 2 online. Phantasy Star 4 is good stuff like that. As far as Game Boy is concerned, though, I do want to go into. I think, to my mind, the reason Game Boy didn't happen, and all of a sudden now we're doing Sega Genesis, I think it's Pokemon Company. I think if you put a Game Boy and Game Boy Color collection of all games on Nintendo Switch Online, and you don't have Pokemon in there, everyone's just going to be confused and upset. And I could absolutely see the part there where Pokemon Company goes like, wait, you want us to just give away red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, crystal as part of your subscription service, even if they're getting a small kickback or whatever? It's like, I could just see Pokemon Company just being like, no, we want to sell those games eventually. We don't want to devalue the people's like mind, in people's minds, the value of those games by having them part as like just a freemium service. So that's my guess. That's a complete conjecture. It's just
I mean, it's a guess. I mean, maybe they want to do what Nintendo did with Mario, where maybe Pokemon's like, we want a window to release a collection or collections where we can get higher, like a certain amount of money from these, fixed amount of money, get some sales from these. And then once we've had that window pass, we'd be willing to add them a Game Boy service for you for some kind of cut as well. But like they probably said, like my guess could be they intimated to Nintendo like, we have plans for collection, and at some point after that, you can have these games. Nintendo's like, all right, well, we don't want to launch the service until we have some of your Pokemon games, so we'll hold this off for now. We got Genesis to take your place, or we're gonna do N64 Genesis right now.
Because I think next year, like a year from now, October 2022. Everyone's yearly subscription is going to about to end or expire, right? So then what does Nintendo do? And to my knowledge, I think if you dig back through those investor conferences, you can actually find the investors were actually getting a little concerned with Nintendo about what are you doing about the Switch Online to get more people on Switch Online? Because they actually, you say you might say I'm doom posting or doom predicting for 23. They were getting antsy about what is Nintendo's plan to retain and add subscribers to their online service. They were very concerned about that. I don't know why, but of all things. But from what I understand, the N64 Online is a response to the investors who are like, what are you adding to your online? What are you doing to get more people online? Because to be frank, after the SNES Online, Nintendo really didn't do anything to get people to subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online services. Like, there was nothing added to the value proposition whatsoever. The release of games was like this weird trickle, and it was mostly Jalico and Titus games. Like, it was, they were not adding much to the value proposition at all. So I think a lot of people were about to lapse on their.
We had like Tetris 99, but I feel like that's starting to get diminishing values, even with their like collaboration tournament things. Well, Super Mario 35 came and went. It was a limited time thing. We haven't had a replacement for that. So I feel like, there was a little bit of pressure on them despite its low cost. It's like, you gotta need, like, do you have anything coming up like that you could just add?
Pac-Man 99 is really, really, really good.
I forgot about Pac-Man 99.
I think Pac-Man 99 is a great value proposition, but strangely enough, the investors were very concerned about Nintendo not doing enough to try to get more subscribers to the Nintendo Switch Online. I thought that was interesting and weird, but if you've ever listened to those investor questions, they're always weird. Like, The people who the shareholders, investors of Nintendo, they're the weirdest people. And they ask the dumbest questions sometimes. So like them being super concerned about this, I guess it's because the only thing I can think of is that in today's entertainment economy, everything is a subscription-based service, right? So all they know is like subscription models are the future. Netflix is super popular. My wife and son watches it all the time. Nintendo's got a subscription service. That's great. So I need to make sure they're on top of their game for their subscription service. They don't know what it costs. They don't know what it entails. They don't know what, exactly how it, is implemented in the overall greater, scheme of things for this whole Switch as a whole. They just know subscription service good, make money, like make sure we're on top of them for keeping their subscription service model going. That's because that in my mind, that's probably why this was such a big deal for them, and probably why Nintendo's doing this in the first place. So like, okay, we need to do that. They're all right, let's appease them. Let's add stuff to our Switch Online service. But they're also going to be a lot happier if we introduce a tier system and it's successful. So
yeah, so I mean that's the biggest thing is that it's not just like adding to the existing sub, it is additional money. It's going to cost you extra, as you said, so it's like it's twofold. We're offering something to entice people to stay and maybe come back, but also even pay a little bit more money. So like that probably is going to get, if not get investors off their back, make some of them actually kind of happy. It's like, oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, not only are you enticing them, bring us in more money. Good.
It's a very shrewd sort of response to like, okay, this is what the investors and shareholders want. Fine. Like let's do this. So yeah, I'm still excited for it. My excitement will diminish depending on how much, because if they charge if it's all of a sudden $40 for N64, like they double the cost, I'm like,
I think that's the thing. That's the big question. It's what it's
$5 more is wanted, $10 is expected. Anything more than 10, then I'm kind of like, then I'm raising my eyebrow. Really? Yeah, I'll probably still get it. I'll still get it, because playing these games online, for someone who grew up with playing Nintendo 64 games online is a dream come true. It really is.
Just to finally do it, it's like legit.
If we get Diddy Kong and Perfect Dark, then it's worth it almost no matter what. Like playing those two online.
Yeah, I would. I mean,
I know I can play Perfect Dark online on the Xbox right now, but
Diddy Kong, Diddy Kong is a big one. Next to Game Mario Kart. Not a lot of people play Star Fox. I like Star Fox Online.
Star Fox is great. Did you ever do the code for the on foot stuff?
I like that stuff. That was fun. Also, we're getting controllers. We're getting the traditional Genesis one. Japan's getting a 6-button, but as you pointed out, there's already like better options for you if you really want a good Genesis controller. It's like that's cheaper. It's like
I don't understand.
You got it.
Retrobit makes these controllers. They're like $20. It's like a Saturn one. It's got a wireless. It's wireless. It's got a little wireless USB receiver for Saturn and for Switch and PC, and they make Genesis ones too. This is the Saturn one.
Yeah,
they have 6-button Genesis controllers that are wireless, and they're like $20, and they're officially licensed products.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend going with that. But it's the N64 controller. We talked about this before. Getting a authentic N64 controller that also has wireless functionality. I feel like those are going to sell out really quickly.
And someone pointed out something else too. Probably can't see it on the controller, but like above the start button on this, there is a select and a home button, which didn't exist on Saturn. That Genesis controller they're selling for $50 doesn't have a home button. You can never leave the Sega Genesis.
You must stay here forever. You're stuck.
You're here forever.
You're paying $50 for this controller to never leave.
And there is a Switch home button on the Retrobit ones. So I don't work for Retrobit. I have no connection to the company. I just was a Christmas gift. But it's shocking to me that it does like 50. Like he holds up both of them, and I'm like, sweet N64 controller. Wait, why are you giving me that giant awful 3-button Genesis controller? And it doesn't even have a way to exit the program.
Moving on for the subscription service, though, there's a bunch of like collection and smaller announcements. We got into more announcements. The one maybe worth talking about was Actraiser Renaissance, just because it's like an actual remaster visual update to the classic. There's some opinions on how it looked, but also like Square Enix is kind of giving hope to people because this is an Enix side game as
Yeah.
well. Hope that their back catalog, like anything is possible to just show up at some point and get like some kind of remake, remaster, not like 7 remake, but like an update treatment.
I was reading stuff online. Apparently that game runs horribly on everything.
Like the new version, Renaissance, because it was available. It came out that day.
Because some people thought, oh, it must be a Switch thing. Oh, the Switch hardware can't even run this. Oh man, but apparently it runs horrible on Steam and on PlayStation. Like apparently it is a choppy, like unoptimized mess. On
okay, so maybe the hope.
That's what I've read from
giving people hope. It's just that's weird, but also like from
probably why it was shadow dropped.
Well, the thing is also the thing I want to bring up is I haven't played it and I haven't played some of their other remasters, but you can at least tell from seeing them that these updates are trading off like the original sprite artwork aesthetic for these newer update looks. Like this one's got like this 3D like model, but two side view. Same thing with like Legend of Mana. Like the update they did for that, but then there was like, or it was Trials of Mana. But then like, was it Legend of Mana? The one that actually retained it, the one they just did also recently.
Yeah,
that one, like, but that looked like I like that look. But like these updates, I know in the sake of like we gotta like make them run on these systems and we want to like visually update them, but it seems like they lose something when they do these things. Like it's like this weird trade-off of it's now more easily available to get, but it's not the same thing. And I imagine Actraiser Renaissance is the same thing.
I don't know much about it, but they've added some stuff gameplay wise to it, which wasn't in the original game. Like some tower defense mode style stuff, apparently, but like
no, that the village stuff was in the game. I don't know if it's the tower defense part, but the village building was
the sim stuff was always there.
Oh, okay, but now you can
like now there's a tower defense aspect.
Okay, I was unsure about that. Okay, now that makes sense.
I guess that's a thing. I don't know. It's weird that it was shadow dropped, but like the whole thing's had this weird sort of like cloud over it. I feel like at first it was like, whoa, cool, like Actraiser. I'm like, wow, it's available already. Like Square didn't want to promote this at all, but then like I started reading that like it's not really like doesn't really run that well on anything, and I was like, oh, so they just kind of like it was a project and it probably wasn't going well, but Square was like not interested in spending any more money or putting any delays on it. They were probably just like, whatever, just put it out.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. If that is what it is and doesn't.
I don't know. You know what? Here's the thing. I don't know if that's 100% true. I've just read multiple.
Yeah, let me go. Steam
from people
Actraiser Renaissance. See if we can see some Actraiser Renaissance on Steam. Mostly positive from 70 reviews. Recommended. Oh, someone complained about some visual stuff, but then changing my frame rate to 90 frames per second somehow got rid of screen tearing. Oh, that's okay. Not recommended. Yeah. I wish there was a middle rating. Pass unless it's on sale or just buy it on mobile. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything about like cons. Very low resolution graphics that look worse the higher display resolution you get. Consistent screen tearing.
So I heard a lot of screen tearing, a lot of choppiness and judder and stuff.
But it sounds like if you set it to certain frame rates or something, it might actually.
Just how weird is that though? This game looks so low tech for a PC game, you know?
Yeah, I do see a lot of people complaining about screen tearing and like jitter or like stuttering, basically looking through these. Even though it has it says mostly positive, but the negative reviews on Steam seem to all be complaining about that as well. So yeah. I mean, just be warned about that if you're jumping into it. But I mean, maybe it's something they patch. But again, it seems like it was something you said, very low effort, low budget project just to like see what they could get out of it. Unfortunately, it seems like
I don't know. It probably, and I don't know who did it. I don't know who did this version of the game. So there's so many questions because it existed and it's here and it's out and goodbye. Like it's very much
Sonic Powered developed it.
That
company called Sonic Powered.
Do not know who that is. I
clicked on their Steam page and they have nothing else for it.
Always a good sign.
Sonic Powered is a Japanese software development company located in Nagoya, Aichi Prefecture. They mainly focus on mobile and console games. Let me see some of their games. I can recognize any of them. Japanese Rail Sim 3D for 3DS is one. I am Air Traffic Controller series. Anonymous Notes. Not really recognizing any of these, unfortunately. Japanese Rail Sim. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They're known for simulation games, Air Traffic Controller, Airport Hero, and the Japanese Rail Sim series. They're the two biggest ones. And they make a game called Waku Waku Sweets, Happy Sweets Making.
There you go.
There you go. Moving on from Actraiser and some of the smaller announcements, we did get into the final stretch of the direct. These final three, probably maybe the biggest announcements, along with Kirby. And the Nintendo stuff. The first one wasn't even a video game thing. They marched Miyamoto up there. Koizumi asked Miyamoto to join him on stage. I thought we were about to get maybe Pikmin 4, but then I slowly realized, oh, wait, we're getting some Mario movie updates. Coming holiday 2022, December 21st, going head-to-head with Avatar 2 next year.
Oh my God,
it's right. Going head to head with Avatar 2. And that's not even the best part, because this sucker is getting an all-star celebrity cast of people, including
everyone's shocked by this. Go ahead, roll.
Okay, first of all, playing the role of Mario is none other than Chris Pratt. Who else could it be but Chris Pratt? This made it clear that they are definitely going in a very different direction, I think, than anyone expected. Like, I don't even know if they're getting an Italian accent with this. I feel like you might just get like a different version of Mario altogether. Although he did tweet out something about this afterwards. At the end, he did "It's a me, Mario" in text or whatever. He says, "I'm practicing my Mario" or whatever. So maybe he is gonna do it, and he's gonna try and do his own take on it. But did you ever in a million years think Chris Pratt would be the voice of Mario?
Yes, I did. And I'm super upset that I didn't, because like months ago, I was thinking while driving home, I was like, I should put out like, people don't understand. Illumination's making this, and like it was buried years, like in a very quiet announcement, who the actual director was. It's just someone who's done like, stuff like Despicable Me, like 2 and whatever. I'm not saying it was exactly that movie. It was some movie like that. I'm like, this is an Illumination film. Like, people don't get it. Like, I should tweet this out. People are like, it's not going to be Charles Martin. It's going to be someone like Chris Pratt. It's going to be Mario or something. I was going to tweet that like months ago. Someone actually did in May. Someone else had the exact same idea I did. And I was like, I was so upset when he announced it. I'm like, I was going to make this joke. I was going to make this joke. But it was one of those like half serious, like it's a joke, but I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like it's Illumination. It's going to be like, because we've known for years that that Illumination Studios is doing it. And then like a year or so ago, like we heard, who the director was. And it was, just one of the CG animated film directors, that non-Disney CG animated film directors. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, this is going to be exactly like Sing, or the Trolls World Tour movies. Like that's what you're getting. You're not. I'm like, look at who's making it. Look at who's actually directing. The film, the writing. Like,
I feel like it's going for.
You're going to get a big pop celebrity
Lego
idol
movie. Like, I feel
Billie
like
Eilish is gonna. I'm gonna say right now, like Billie Eilish or someone's gonna do the theme song, or like the main vocal song that's gonna be used in every trailer. Like, get ready, like just something like that. That's what you're getting.
They're it's clearly going for the direction. I'm not shocked anymore. Like, it just started to click. It immediately clicked that this is what they're going for. I just laughed because in my mind, I'm like, did Miyamoto have to like look at this and approve it? Like, did he get like these like photographs that saw Chris Pratt? It's like, I mean, but also like they probably said like he's Star-Lord. He's like a huge Marvel. Like, that's all you have to do is like Star-Lord. Like, Star-Lord is gonna be like your big Marvel actor is gonna be in here along with his other body of work. Then you have Anya Taylor-Joy coming in, just hot off like the Queen's Gambit, and I mean, gonna be in Furiosa, like another really big talented actor who's been in a lot of good stuff is gonna be playing Peach. You got Charlie Day, who I just mentioned Lego movies, is in the Lego. It's like there's Luigi. I'm like, we're starting to see a trend here. What?
No, I didn't know he was in. I didn't see the Lego movie.
Oh, really?
Was he the main dude? No. Who was Who was he in Lego Movie?
Oh, he was the 1980 something space guy.
Okay. All right.
The
I know
like the
I know
space helmet dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Jack Black and Seth Rogen were both in Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, because Charlie Day's Luigi. We got as we said, Jack Black as Bowser.
That is the only logical pick in this list to me so far.
I just need him to break out in a song as Bowser at some point. Just doing
he will. Oh,
because
he will.
have you even seen this people tweeted the late night show gif of TikTok of him? He just gets up and he goes do 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 do. Like
the hunting horn thing.
I was like, oh my god, that's like perfect. Keegan Michael Key as Toad. It's like people are like, is it gonna be real spoken lines or is it gonna be like George Clooney's South Park dog thing where he just makes noises and stuff? It's like same as like Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. It's like, is Donkey Kong gonna speak like the shitty cartoon, or is it just gonna be like
Seth Rogen
stoner guy. But then having Donkey Kong in there, it's like, wow,
and Cranky.
It's like we're getting more lore. It's the start of like a Nintendo cinematic universe. But
let me tell you what this movie's going to be, because there's that one, I forget the character actor who plays Spike, the foreman, and he said it in
Sebastian Maniscalco.
I can't pronounce his last name. Anyways, he said he was playing Spike.
Scalco, sorry.
Yeah, he's playing their foreman, their boss. He's playing the Mario Brothers boss. So I'm like, okay, he's from Wrecking Crew, not the Mario Brothers Spike, not the creature Spike, the human Spike. From Wrecking Crew. And I'm like, okay, let me tell you what this movie's going to be. It's going to be about how Mario
Luigi... that one, not the ball one. Yeah, okay. You thought it was the ball guy, but it's the Wrecking Crew.
Look at his symbol.
Yeah, that's right. Now that I see the symbol.
It's the Wrecking Crew guy. Like Mario's going to be basically a construction worker, and he'll probably have some sort of friendly rivalry with Donkey Kong on Cranky Kong. And then what's going to happen is he's going to live in a city, and then like Bowser's going to come in and he's going to try to like take over the city, you know, or like put himself as like the ruler of the city. And it's going to be, he's going to try to steal Mario's girlfriend away or whatever. And that the whole movie is just going to be about Mario and Luigi learning to believe in themselves and the power of family. And I'm surprised fucking Vin Diesel somehow involved in this. Yeah, like maybe he is. They haven't announced to everyone yet. Maybe he's one of them.
Yeah, there's still more roles. They did at least acknowledge Charles Martinet would have cameo roles. Yeah. I already called what it's going to be. There's going to be a part where they're playing a old school Mario game, and he's just doing the voices of the in-game characters. Like they'll play like Mario 64. There'll be a retro mode. He's like, "It's me, Mario," and I'll just be like that. It'll be like a little cameo.
My prediction is that Mario's going to have a phone, right? And he'll get like a FaceTime. He'll get a FaceTime call from his dad. And his dad like, "Hey, Mario, you got to believe in yourself. You know, listen to Papa." And then be like, "Oh," and just be like, "All right, Dad." And
so it's Mario's dad. That would be really cool.
And there'll be some like iPhone, or it'll be like mushroom phone, or like there'll be some stupid Hallmark style pun on iPhones and FaceTiming and Facebook or something like that. And that's what Charles Martinet. He's gonna have like 3 lines in the movie.
Okay, so because it's got to be a comedy though, that could work. What if they do like a whole like I gotta impersonate you, like, you know, like Harry Potter Polyjuice pushing shit where they gotta sneak in and like they need someone to be Mario, and he goes in there and goes like, "Hey, Mario," goes, "It's me," and he's like, "You idiot, that's not what Mario sounds like," or something. Like, you gotta like,
that's probably too clever for the film.
Yeah. So, but there is one actual like renowned voice actor. Jones was pointing this out when we were doing actually Kevin Michael Richardson, because that kind of came up on social media. A few voice actors were kind of stating a little bit of a displeasure about not him, but celebrities like being always cast in these when they're not voice actors. It's a different skill set. It also pushes out voice talent, but
it's Illumination.
It's as you said, they want the big names.
When they announced this movie years ago, that was the foregone conclusion. They were never going to get. It's awesome that he even got a headshot moment in the announcement, because he is a staple, long time, you know, well known, well renowned voice actor. And it's nice that he's there, even though it's Kamek. It's not like a mainline role or anything, but
it's gonna be like Bowser's right hand person. I think they're gonna have a decent role.
He's gonna be the Iago of the film, basically. to Bowser.
He'll either be the Iago or he'll be the voice of reason that Bowser never listens to, and he like I can see him at the end being the one like where he goes to Mario and helps him out, like I'm doing the right thing because my boss is an idiot and stuff, like or Iago.
Like that. So yeah, so yeah, like that's nice they did it, but like it was a foregone conclusion that this is what they're gonna do, because like even Disney and Pixar, they don't advertise their celebrities that much. But they're kind of like remember when Call of Duty used to always have some major A-list celebrity in all their games, and then it stopped after Kevin Spacey for good reason.
Yeah, probably good reason.
but like they had like Michael Keaton, Ed Harris, Gary Oldman, but they never advertised it, right? And that's kind of how Disney and Pixar seems to do it. Like they get these celebrities and they're doing the voices, but they never really advertise it that heavily. But like for DreamWorks and for Universal, and now Universal owns DreamWorks Animation now, so now it's all one big umbrella. They always sell their movies on their voice cast, going all the way back to Shark Tale. Like, and you could even argue Prince of Egypt if you wanted to, because that was a star-studded cast as well. But like, that's pretty much how they've operated forever. Is we have a bunch of celebrities. Like that's their thing is, we're going to get all these names and comedians, we'll just boom, 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 flash them on the screen at the end of a trailer. That is the MO, the standard operating procedure for everything, every major CG film not made by Disney Pixar, and they do the same thing. They just don't advertise the names as much. So yeah, when Universal Studios was announced and we're gonna have Illumination make it, I'm like, here it comes. It's gonna be a big old star-studded comedy pop culture cast, and there's gonna be a whole bunch of pop singers doing songs for the movie. It's happening. There is no avoiding it. It is inevitable.
Say, Simmons, is no matter what, I'm all in now because of how crazy this cast is. Like, even if it's a train wreck, I just want to. I gotta see this train wreck.
Okay, I want it to be. I want it to be a train wreck. I don't have any faith of it being good. I want it to be a train wreck because the worst thing this movie could be is just a boring, predictable, like whatever, like just a boring, lifeless mess of just like Mario does. Mario works a thing, he has a tough job, and Peach gets kidnapped because it saves her at the end. Woohoo! Like that's the worst thing that could happen to this film is it ends up just being boring. Like not terrible, just boring. Because I want it to be like Jupiter Ascending levels of like entertaining and bad.
Oh no!
Like I want it to be. And to be frank, that kind of was the original Super Mario Brothers movie. Was absolutely.
Hey, the original one's in a special way though, which I think is always worth like a rewatch and like has value showing people it. Like it's still enjoyable.
It's super entertaining. It's terrible, but it's
so entertaining. But you're right. Like I don't like boring bad. So like I hope it's like train wreck bad, but but entertaining at least. Otherwise, I hope it surprises me and actually ends up being good, and it like kind of like surpasses the expectations. But I mean, who knows?
It could have. I'll admit that Sonic the Hedgehog turned out way better than I thought. Well, it wasn't anything great, but like Sonic the Hedgehog was like, this was surprisingly not terrible. Like this could have been way worse. Like I was expecting Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh, geez.
Awful. I was dead set. I'm like, this is going to be Alvin and the Chipmunks, like live action Yogi Bear levels of bad. And it wasn't. So I'm like, well, maybe this will surprise me. Maybe this won't be that bad. Like I think being all CG helps. And what I said, on my own podcast earlier was that if it was up to me, what would I do with a Mario CG movie? I'm like, I would not make a CG movie of Mario. Mario to me works great as a Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry of the 40s era style of like high budget shorts. And then I would take something more thematically sound from Nintendo's stable and make that the main headline movie personally. But it's Mario and he is one of the most recognizable icons on the planet. So of course he's going to be getting the headline movie. But again, like I want it to, I mean, I don't want it to be bad, but like I'm kind of expecting like the Tom and Jerry movie out of this, because you're taking a property that works well in a video game, works well in these like small, simple shorts and stories. But then when you try to stretch it into a giant film and then like, just have a bunch of random celebrities do all their voices, I'm like, here we go. Here it comes. Like Tom and Jerry, the film coming back at you.
Tom and Jerry is like two was just dragged out problem. Like it was like this doesn't like so it's too long. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. Mario movie, I can't wait to see what it looks like. They said next year is probably when we'll get our first look at it. So probably nothing left for the rest of this year.
Yeah, you'll see a trailer in like June.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Maybe not E3 is when they debut it, but we'll have to see. There were just two more big announcements. The first one up was finally a more in-depth look at Splatoon 3. Getting a look at some of the new mechanics in the game, especially multiplayer mode, and getting a look at the story mode, Rise of the Mammalians. How in this world there are only all the mammals vanished except for two cats, but they're apparently coming back. That's why there's a furry tentacle squid thing that shows up.
Literally turns the character into Captain Caveman at the end of that trailer from Hanna-Barbera. I don't know if you know what Captain Caveman looks like, but that looks exactly like Captain Caveman.
The freaking boxes they show, like the first shot when they're in the city and they pop out of those like metal like box, not boxes. They look like maybe like rice cookers or something. Well, they look like that Pokemon symbol on it. I was like, what is like they're gonna be and there's always crossover stuff, but anyway, it's their arrows. They're the turn sign arrows.
Okay.
But sorry, I'm just watching it right now, literally on my screen. But what'd you think of this update? The theme, they're treating it more like how they did Splatoon 2 updates with the researcher, the developer coming back as the researcher.
The only thing, I mean, I played a little bit of Splatoon 1 when day one it came out on the Wii U. And I never went back and never touched it since. I just felt like you could have told me this was almost from any Splatoon game and I would have believed you. I don't think it obviously it's not doing anything crazy graphically. Like obviously like the theme is more dusty, dried up kind of whatever. I get that, but like as far as like the general multiplayer footage, like I couldn't tell you what the difference was until that guy came out and he started saying, here's the new weapons, here's what they do kind of thing. That's pretty cool. I have a lot of respect for Splatoon though, because it's a brand new IP that Nintendo believed in and backed and became a huge success for them. So I'm actually I'm just very happy that Splatoon exists as a new IP, a new alternative, because they even said during the development of the first game, they had almost gone back and made it a Mario title.
I remember that, and they pushed back against it.
And I was like, man, that would have been such a bummer. I'm just so glad that it's new, completely original, and I love that for it. I think
definitely appreciate that. Yeah.
The strangest thing about all of this, what they showed was no release date whatsoever. Like no season, like not just a day, but not a month, not a season.
Still 2022, which we knew before.
2022, and it looks far along. Like this looks pretty done.
The story montage in that middle there, like showed a lot. Like that was the most interesting stuff. Like the Inception city, like the nighttime city with like the sky was like like inverted. They showed like some bosses. They showed like all these crazy environments, and then like the conspiracy theory like chart with the strings, like trying to like solve the murder mystery, and then like
Luigi was trying to solve that. I mean, it was Charlie Day.
Like it was just like it was like out there, and it looked like I need to jump in on one of these story modes. I've like put these off for so long. Like maybe
same
finally I jump in. Also, Bloodworth point out in our reactions the customization, like so many different looking inklings in there, and like how your appearance, you're gonna have probably the most robust customization options.
And that was the thing they showed off in the first trailer for it at the beginning of the year. So I'm glad this exists. My head is spinning over not just this, but Bayo and Zelda not having any concrete dates in 2022. Kirby got a nebulous spring, which probably means March or April. I think there's probably some debate at Nintendo internally of when to release this. When
it could also just be because of moving pieces, Simmons. Because as you said,
it's moving.
A few games don't have dates because they're like, okay, who's gonna be finished first? Who's like, and where do we want to put these? That also could be it. And just before I let you go again, just the vibe I got is like, I feel like this is a first half title. Like there'll probably be another update next year. Like it'll probably be a Splatoon Direct. or whatever they call them. I forgot them again. They're updates, and we'll get like the big like hit. We're gonna have like the beta test. We're gonna have like those like things they do ahead of time, and we'll get like probably the date and everything with that. I imagine it'll be like their May or June title. Would be my best guess at this point.
I'm kind of in the same boat with you there. I think it's May June, but I think the reason they didn't say it is because like you look at Bayo 3 as well, and that game does look actually far along, and we'll get to why. But I think they're that, and there's possibly another big Nintendo title that's gone unsaid, but pretty sure it's near done as well. They're probably sitting there looking at their slate and going, where do we juggle these? When's the best time to release each one of these games? Zelda's November. Let's just get that out of the way. Like that's not even
if it comes out next year.
That's not even that to me. That's not even in contention. Like Zelda's November. But there's probably these two games and a couple others that are probably just sitting at Nintendo. Nintendo's probably sitting like they're just debating internally. They're probably doing internal analysis on timing and everything, because like Splatoon 2 came out in July. Splatoon 1 came out, I want to say summer or fall the year it did come out on the Wii U. So they're probably like just deciding when is the best time, when is the absolute best time to maximize, hit the best moment for a game like this to come out. I think it's May or June personally. Like that's just kind of my gut feeling right now is like I thought Project anymore. I thought Triangle Strategy was a big February title, kind of like Bravely Default 2. It's March 4th. So
it's close enough. I mean, February is already a little too packed, so probably it might be better to start moving stuff out of February. So maybe better call on
so it's
part.
like so Kirby again is March or April, and then like May or June is Splatoon. Bayo can kind of come out whenever. My gut is like late August. Similar to No More Heroes 3, similar to Astral Chain. That's when I'm just like, Bayo 3 is going to come out like really late August, like almost September. And then November for Zelda. And then the other months, I think they're going to be filled in by other things, which have yet to be announced. But come on, we know they're in development.
For sure. And as you said, one of those games we're talking about where they might fit into the release schedule for next year. Nintendo ended this Direct with the 4 years in the making, 4 years of waiting, and back and forth between its development and status. Bayonetta 3 finally got its big unveiling. Cinematic stuff, gameplay stuff, and
gameplay stuff was the big deal because it showed UI, it showed life bars, it showed button prompts. You were looking at the game on hardware running and someone playing it in real time. It was not a pre-rendered thing. Now, that also had a kind of its own little like setbacks where like that game is by just the nature of the game it's going to kill bit rates on streams. So having a compressed video on YouTube run live streamed, it's going to crush the heck out of that video. It's just doing it no favors, which kind of sucks because like it 100% will look better, when you're playing it at home on your own screens. 100% will look better. But like the compression of streaming and YouTube and whatever that doesn't no favors as far as visual pizzazz goes, because bit rate's just with all that stuff happening on screen, the bit rate is just gone more so than the other games that they advertise. So that does kind of hurt a little bit. Most talk is just about how like I wish this wasn't on Switch. I wish it wasn't on Switch. I'm like, it wouldn't exist if it wasn't on Switch. So for just whatever, it's a silly argument anyways, because it's exactly like Bayonetta 2. Nintendo funded this, so you either get this or nothing, and I'd much rather have this than nothing. I will say it's weird that it goes back to me, it feels more like a Bayo 1 color scheme, very much more gray, where 2 was a lot more colorful, and this is a lot more muted, gray color-wise.
You saw the theories about maybe why that is, right?
Oh, I have many theories about why that
people
is.
People think it's a prequel.
A lot of people think it's prequel. I kind of feel that's a good possibility considering the face, the character, the 3D face model.
Also, the voice actor saying they weren't necessarily coming back, and people pointing out she sounds different.
And she has the hair of little Cereza from Bayonetta 1, which is young Bayonetta. Spoilers. I don't know if it's a time travel or a prequel. I think her soul's been split. because the 3 is a split down right through the Umbra Witch symbol. I think from going from that first teaser trailer where she gets split in half and dies or whatever, I think her soul's been split, and this is like one fraction of her soul. And there's possibly another. I think the Virgil looking person at the end might be the other half of Bayonetta's soul.
I don't think that's Jean.
It's either Jean or it's like the other split side of Bayonetta, because she has the Cheshire Cat doll on the sword hilt, which Jean could have, but it would make more sense for Bayonetta to have it. I think Bayonetta's soul's been splintered, and that's going to be a big plot of the game, because like she doesn't even use her hair to summon the demon. She uses her tattoo on her back, you know, and the hands that are coming out are different, are like these pale white hands with like big purple nails. Doesn't quite look the same as the butterfly demon from the first game, and she turns into the butterfly lady at some point.
Yeah,
in
I
the
saw
trailer.
that. Yeah.
So my going theory is that this Bayonetta is some entity, some ghostly entity at the beginning that we saw in that teaser trailer 4 years ago, like defeated the old Bayonetta, splintered her soul, and this game is all about like that, because you're kind of playing as Bayonetta, but you're also kind of not playing as Bayonetta. Like it's like a Virgil thing with like V and your reason splintered, but like not as crazy, like because your reason is just a big tree monster. But yeah, that is my big brain.
Okay.
It just fits the logo. It kind of fits everything we saw from
cool
before
idea.
So I don't think it's time travel, because they already did time travel in Bayonetta 2.
Yeah, I don't think. I think it has something to do with like her getting killed or split. Like that seems like more like, especially with the teaser trailer that they originally showed of, you know, her getting like shot and stuff. So maybe that works. What do you think about like the kaiju battle style stuff, like her summons fight, like controlling them in real time, like she's doing the actions on the ground and they're like mimicking her and stuff?
So they kind of teased that a little bit in Bayonetta 2, where you're fighting some of the fights with the Lumen Sage, where you're fighting him and then all of a sudden they both do their summons, and their summons are fighting in the background as you're fighting them, and then you take over the big giant the demon, the butterfly demon lady, and like you do like the punch out sequence with the Lumen Sage's big summon. So like they've kind of teased that a little bit, but this time it's like you have 3 of them, as you saw on the bottom left with the UI. Like you can summon 3 different demons. Like you can do Armagora, or you could do like the big spider, and they actually come out fully, and like it looks like you're controlling them in some aspect. So to me, I think the graphics kind of maybe took a little bit of a hit, because there's going to be a lot of kaiju battling going on in this game. Like there's going to be a lot of like multiple large scale character models coming out. The other thing, I don't know if you noticed, is at one point when she hits one of the big fat demons, it smashes into the wall and causes like this whole like big giant crack to appear. So there's like environment damage that like it reacts to enemies getting hit into the side of buildings. And there's a part where like she does like the hurricane thing, and it sweeps up all the cars and stuff around. So like there's like a more of the environment is being used and utilized in combat this time than in the other games. Like when she stick someone to the side of a building with the spider web and stuff like that. So I think maybe there is I think maybe like the graphics maybe are toned down a little bit so they can do more environmental interactions and have multiple giant kaiju kind of going all over the place.
Yeah, the last sequence of like sliding across like the curved buildings and like with that looked insane. It's like,
yeah, it's also reminiscent of like that part where you freeze the giant wave in Bayonetta 2 and you surf down the wave, and then like you have a boss fight in the middle of like the tube of a wave. So it's like it reminded me a lot of that. Like I definitely saw a lot of like visual callbacks, if you will, to like stuff in Bayo 2. So I'm very excited for the game. Platinum's one of my favorite game developers out there. I never lost faith in this game. A lot of people thought the game was vaporware.
You said you have an interesting idea about why we haven't seen this game for so long.
I do have an interesting idea, and that is I don't think they've been working on this game for 4 years. I don't think that happened. If you because they put up a Platinum blog of a message from both the game's director, and Kamiya also had his own separate one, and it's Yusuke, I forget what his last name is.
Miyata.
So he's the new director for Bayo 3. This is his first time directing a game, but he was part of the game design lead for Astral Chain, and it says he worked on the team for Wonderful 101. I don't know if that means the Wii U version or the remastered, but he was on Astral Chain, which to me tells me kind of says it right there. I think Bayonetta 3 had some early work done by the original director, Hashimoto, who did Bayonetta 2 and did Star Fox Zero. And then he quit Platinum a couple years ago, which caused everyone to sort of panic and think, oh, Bayonetta 3 might be in trouble, might be canceled. I'm like, I think he quit. And then Platinum was like, well, we have obligations to this and to multiple other projects they're doing, like Wonderful 101 Remastered, Astral Chain, Babylon's Fall, some of their other stuff, like they're doing a vertical shmup, like shooter game. They have like the Demon's World or whatever, that mobile title that looks like Okami. I think they literally just went, okay, well, we're putting this project on hold. We're getting Astral Chain done. And then once Astral Chain finished, then they came together and said, all right, who's doing this? What's the team going to look like? Let's build a Bayonetta 3 team and then get to work. And so they've only probably been working on this game for two and a half years, plus whatever pre-production stuff that probably carried over from whatever they might have been doing originally in 2017. That is my big brain theory. Just the fact that the guy was like, oh yeah, he was part of the design team on Astral Chain. I'm like, so then he wasn't working on Bayo 3. He wasn't directing a whole other game at the time then, was he? He was doing that. So now it's possible he could have been double dutying it, but I still think that Bayo 3 was probably put on the back burner for 2 of those 4 years where, we didn't hear anything. So yeah, that's my big brain theory of to what happened with this game. I don't think it's been like, oh, they've been working on it like constantly, like toiling away for 4 years and have nothing to show. I'm like, no, I don't think that happened. I think they got swept up in other obligations, and maybe the original director did leave, and maybe he was directing part 3, and maybe he did quit, and maybe that did kind of like cause a bit of a flummox or panic for the team, and just went, I don't know if it was panic so much as just said, okay, we've lost our main director. We'll hold off on this for now. Get other stuff done. We have other projects to finish. So that's my big brain on Bayonetta 3.
Yeah.
Take it as you will. It's all just sort of like armchair analyzing, whatever. But that's the way I look at it. But I'm glad it exists. I'm glad it's real. I'm very excited for it. I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to maybe like?
I was just reading over some development history from it to see if they glean anything else. But I mean, it seemed like pretty much in line. It's like just people have been asking questions over the years, and like I guess Inaba also comes up a few times. PlayStation Platinum Game Studio at PlayStation Studios. But yeah, I'm glad it has, it's resurfaced. I mean, I kind of suspected it was the case that they probably just weren't working on it. Like, yeah. Hey, your more like detailed version seems totally plausible. It's like yeah, they had other obligations, and like the Bayonetta 3 is a high profile game. They didn't want to stick anybody on it. So if they had a big departure a few years ago, it's like, we're not just going to hand this over to anyone. And as you said, all of our best directors are already tied up. So like they probably just told Nintendo, hey, we can give you like a C team to finish this, but that's probably not what you want. Otherwise, you can give us some more, like we need more time because we got to finish up Astral Chain for you. And we're doing like a few other things. So it's like, once we finish these, we will get right on this. And that's fine. Like I think it needs to live up to its pedigree, because I think while there have been some misses from Platinum games, like Bayonetta has not been it. Bayonetta is like held in the highest regards from Platinum. So like it has to they have to get it right.
Yeah, and Nintendo of all people are actually very cool with doing this to a game. They will do it. Nintendo has shown many times that they're fine just pushing a game back years if it needs to be. This happened with Metroid Prime 4, where Nintendo was very actually upfront and was like, we had someone making this game and it was just not working out. It was like it didn't meet our quality standards, which basically means like this game was a dumpster fire. So we took it from the original developer, which we kind of know from LinkedIn stuff was a studio called Namco Shanghai. And from what I understand, Metroid Prime 4 was actually being made piecemeal.
Yeah. we've got
Like
we talked about all this stuff before,
the
and then
lead
like
apparently,
you would
lead
have
was
to
apparently Namco Shanghai, but then other people, apparently other parts of the other studios doing stuff for Metroid Prime 4 were actually right on track or ahead of the curve. But like the main lead developer was like the one with the most trouble, so Nintendo was just like, forget it.
this is a mess. Like let's do the thing. And you have to imagine if this was happening in Bayonetta 3, Nintendo would have said something. They would have like did one of those video updates, like, hey, like ask Kami, like, hey, can you just say like, hey, like there's something wrong, but like we're working on it because you got to give us confidence. Like it sounds like the reason Nintendo allowed them to just keep like giving like the one-off answer, we're still working on it, still coming along nicely, like to go like for so long, it's because like they knew the situation. Like your situation seems like totally reasonable. It's like, yeah, this is what's up, and like there's nothing wrong. It's just it's taking a little while, and like there's nothing to be gained by saying like it's like they basically they mistaken, like it wasn't their intent, but it was just announced too early, even though they probably didn't intend to announce it too early.
I think it would have been worse if Nintendo came out and said like, we got to give them more time because we need them to finish this other game for us. Like it would actually make Nintendo,
it would have hurt
look
Asphalt
like
Chain. People would have been like
people would have just been pissed because they're like, well, why would you okay this? Well, who cares about this other thing? I know nothing.
Like, why don't you put Asphalt Chain on hold and get Bayonetta 3 like you know, fast track?
That's exactly what would have happened, and I'm sure Nintendo was like, you know, just play dumb, like just stay silent, whatever, just say it's happening. Like I'm sure it was very much like you know, Kami expressed frustration at not being able to say anything about it. But like I 100% kind of in my head, I'm just kind of like, yeah, Nintendo didn't say anything like they did for Metroid, because like them coming out and saying like we're making them finish this other game for us that you know nothing about because it's a new IP. No, like this, I think Nintendo knew the smarter road there would have just been like, you know, okay, like it's still Platinum. Platinum's still making this. And if you go back even further, 10 years ago, there's the Iwata asks with Takahashi from Monolith. And remember, he went to Nintendo and said, I'm going to propose cutting these and these and these areas and events and story out of the very first Xenoblade. And Nintendo was like, why would you do that? And he was like, well, I'm not going to be able to make the deadline. He's like, well, then just delay it. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, just delay it. I don't care. Like, he said he was shocked. He had never... all the time with Square and Namco, he was like shocked that like the head response from the boss was just like, oh, why would you cut stuff out? Well, it's not going to be done in time. Well, then delay it. I don't care. And so, okay. So if Nintendo does believe in a product, they will just tell them, just delay it. We don't care. Like, it'll happen. Nintendo has, and they've shown it like over the last few years, they have stuff to fill in the gaps. There's always something to fill in the gaps, even if it's a collection of ROM dumps of Mario games from N64 and GameCube and Wii. Like, there's always something to fill in the gaps to time, you know, to make money. So, you know, like at the end of the day, like if we push this back and find something else to fill in the gap time, like we'll make our money, and then that'll come out and that'll be well received and well loved and leave a lasting good legacy that we can exploit in the future by re-releasing that again, you know, for premium prices. Hello, Skyward Sword. Like, that's the way they look at it, because Skyward Sword was heavily delayed, but now it has this legacy. And now they can re-release it for $60 10 years later, you know, and that it's kind of brilliant in a way. Like, it's good for the game, but it's also good for Nintendo. And it's kind of something I argue with movie stuff too, where you need to stop thinking about short term so much, because if you make your movie, make your game the quality you want your game to be, it leaves a legacy, and that legacy sticks with a game forever. And from a shrewd money making standpoint, you can make money forever. You will, like, Activision will never re-release Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, but they did make a remake of 1 and 2, but 5 will never come back because 5 was a pile and everyone knows it. So like there's your kind of lasting legacy right there. It's like the same deal with some of the Prince of Persia's. Like, some of the other ones weren't as well received, like there's Forgotten Sands on the Wii, and even though it was apparently very good, if doesn't have a legacy, it doesn't come back, kind of thing. So I don't expect there to be many Cyberpunk re-releases in the future.
Yeah, it still needs to be released.
It still needs to be finished, but like even when Cyberpunk is actually finished, like the legacy of that game is tainted forever. Like, it's not coming back. It'll only come back in and that can't even come back in a collection because it's part 1 of none. So yeah, like Nintendo's right in I think in the aspects of like Bayonetta 3, where why did it take so long? Well, something maybe happened, but Nintendo didn't want to just dump it, and they believed in it, and they didn't want to rush it out, and they didn't want to like, just fart it out really quick so we have something we can make a quick buck on it, off of the fandom and the legacy of 1 and 2, and even if 3 sucks, whatever. They did the right thing, which is like, just take your time, figure it out, wait till your other projects are done, and when this comes out and it's a really good game, great. Now we have a Bayonetta trilogy we can resell forever. So it's the smart thing to do. It's not obviously it's not the most exciting thing to do. And yeah, it tests your patience really hard, but it's the right thing to do. And I'm glad Nintendo did it. If indeed that is the behind the scenes story of Bayo 3, I'm glad this is how it turned out.
Mm-hmm. Bayonetta 3 closing out that Nintendo Direct. That was it for their 40-minute presentation for September. And yeah, they as we talked about, they covered a lot of ground in there. So some really, really good stuff, some interesting stuff. And it kind of obviously we're still got a few more things this year they already announced.
Okay, were you shocked by no Advance Wars?
Okay, so I didn't really like. I don't want to get it. Yeah, I was like, we're not going to get stuff that wasn't announced here, but like there was one glaring omission, which is Advance War. This is the thing I'm focusing on: winter titles for the Switch, and Advance Wars coming out in December is like, yo, this is the game that you can like with how much they're pushing Dread. It's like,
did we need another Dread?
You could have taken out that Dread segment and put in a little. I mean, everyone's like, well, they already did a big like Treehouse Live, like same with Metroid.
And
like,
Mario Party.
And like Mario Party, it's like, come on, like Advance Wars, like this game, like this is the series that also. I mean, I know they both need like Metroid does need like help. Like it needs to be a bigger franchise. Like, it needs to do better than what it is. I feel like, but Advance Wars also is deserving too. And like you could have made carved out a little slice for them. So it was a little weird.
I don't believe it. I don't get it. I mean, it'll probably have a quickie launch trailer at Game Awards.
That's all I can think of is that. Yeah, they're gonna do its own little thing on social media. Put out like a trailer, like what they've been doing for Metroid. Just put out a bunch of trailers leading up to it, and once I imagine once Dread's out, or maybe once Mario's out in the end of October, November will just be like Pokemon time, and they'll talk about Advance Wars a lot. So I was like, okay, sure, cool. So yeah, that was a little weird not being there, not even having like a mention, not even in a montage of any kind.
That was a shocking omission to me. There were other omissions where I'm just kind of like, why didn't we talk about this game? You could speculate all day, but that to me was like shocking. Like, what? The game's coming out in less than 3 months. Like, what? I don't get it.
Little, definitely a little weird on that one.
I get like, there's nothing more to say on the Game & Watch Zelda thing. There really isn't.
Oh yeah, like what? That's whatever.
There's nothing else to say, but it's like for Advance Wars, I'm like, nothing really. Not even a montage. Like you said, not even a montage clip. Really? Okay, yeah. That's bizarre, man.
Well, it's Nintendo. Sometimes they don't always make sense. They do some like things that seem really smart, and it's like, wait, what did they didn't do this, or they did this? It's just this comes with the territory. Well, that is gonna do it for this this big episode. It was nice. It was a little bit of a drought there for a while with Nintendo news, and then big September Direct carrying that tradition on. We've had a big September Direct every year since the Switch launched back in 2017. So I think it's safe to say this will continue on probably for a while.
The one thing I would wish I wish there would have been a little more of a heads up than 24 hours.
Oh yeah, this is especially for a big one. Like, I mean, they could have given us like 36 hours, 48 hours, like 2 day heads up.
A week could have been cool too. I
mean, they did that for their E3 thing at least, but I think that was more like everyone in the industry telling them you need to do this. You cannot just stealth announce your damn thing. And plus it was too many moving pieces. It's like there was like, we kind of have to. So that's why I kind of like it when there's still these big centralized events, because it kind of takes away some of the power from them to do like everyone's like, oh, they can do it on their own terms. Sometimes their own terms suck. And while a lot of the stuff about Nintendo Directs is great, their short notice thing sucks. And I really wish they would change that.
My theory is that they know there's going to be a million and one fake rumors of misinformation rumors about what's going to be in the Direct. And my guess is that's why they do it so short notice, because like if no one's really even sure if one's happening, you can't sit there and be like, announce it a week ahead of time. And then over that weekend, a billion posts show up on social media. Here's what's going to be leaked in the direct. And it's not true. And then people get worked up and hyped up, for nothing. So that's my guess, but whatever. Like, you should not worry about
I feel like it happens no matter what anyway. It's like
it's gonna happen no matter what. Yeah, like don't worry about what people are gonna make up on the internet. Just like more than a day would be nice. That's all I'm saying. Like I wish it was a little more than a day.
Yeah, at least it was at a good time for us this time. It wasn't an early morning one. It was a nice in the afternoon one. So it's like
3 o'clock Best Coast, 6 o'clock East Coast. It's good.
I appreciated that one. So I definitely I'm very was satisfied with that. But yeah, that's all for this episode. Thank you again to everyone who submitted questions for the original idea for this episode, which was talking about the rumored N64 games. I went through all the questions. There were only those 2 that I picked, were the only ones that were still not. They were the only ones that like could generate an answer. The other ones were all answered. I even saw some of you go in there and go, well, this has been answered now. I don't need to. This is no. So they were like updated. So like, thank you to all our $5 and up patrons who submitted questions. I'll make that post the week we're recording. In rare instances, like 3 times a year when Nintendo does a big direct on short notice that messes everything up, that might throw a wrench in the works, but otherwise, yeah, that's how it works here. Also had some we had some $200 patrons, our shout out tier of patrons for the month of September. So shout outs to El Thanis, Greg did Dark Knight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, and Nick. Shout out, thank you so much. Thank you, Simmons, for joining me and talking about all this stuff. Always a pleasure. And once again, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sadly, not the big deep dive discussion.
Exactly. We were kind of like hoping, like we assumed at least maybe Zelda or Monolith Soft would be in this, and we're like, well, that's what we're going to focus on for this discussion because we'll be here for like ever talking about that. But you know what? This saves it for another time because those things are still coming at some point. And we'll definitely have that episode.
I have no fear. Was obviously not for Zelda and nor for Xenoblade. I think they're coming along just fine. I don't think there's any weird Bayo 3 situation happening with these games at all. Like I think they're doing just fine. Nintendo's playing chess. They're playing 3D Star Trek chess with their announcements and release dates right now.
Well, for as usual, do you want to let our listeners and viewers know where they could follow you and check out some more of your work if they're interested?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube at YoVideoGames podcast, which you can listen to on any podcast listening place for free. And then on Twitter at twitter.com/ or at whatever at Doom Assist Me on Twitter.
At whatever. So,
yeah. At whatever. Don't do that. At Doom Assist. I was like trying to remember what is the proper way to announce a Twitter handle. Whatever. At Doom Assist Me. And you can find me on weekends at Maximilian_dude on Twitch. So if you ever want to like see the craziness of that big old group stream, and mostly focus on fighting games on weekends.
Thank you again for joining us, Simmons. And until next time, everybody, may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.